justice for all.
With that, I'll call the roll. Riley?
Here.
Kennedy?
Here.
Schmidt-Key?
Present.
Wilder?
Here.
Nelson?
Present.
Budney?
Present.
Vanaz? And Kostick. We have a full board. We have the next item of action is to approve the agenda. Entertain a motion unless there's a change in it.
So moved.
Second.
Move in support of the agenda for tonight's meeting be approved as distributed. If there's no discussion, I'll indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. Next, you have the minutes of the December 10th meeting in front of you. Everybody's had a chance to look at them. Are there any suggested changes, corrections? If not, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Is there support?
Second.
Move supported that the minutes of December 10th be approved as distributed. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We have approval of bills. You've had a chance to look at the vouchers on pages 8 through 14 of your packet. Any questions?
I just have a couple of questions.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
Just for my own benefit, a couple of things I'd like to know. On page 9, there was an expense for Aero concrete cutting, and I just wondered where that was at. It's the fourth, fifth check.
There were
It's $531.
Yeah, at Grown Meridian, Grosville Parkway on the east side.
Is it the road or the bike path? Because it says bike. It says
I don't know
concrete
about
road
concrete
bike path, and I'm.
Well, it was for a water main repair.
These were all for water main
okay,
breaks, yeah.
that answers
Oh,
that
okay.
question. And then I just wondered on page 12. Who went up to the seminar for the OSHA compliance? Who was that?
I'm going on the 20th.
Oh, that's
This
okay.
morning, yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Are there other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported that the vouchers in your packet, as displayed on pages 8 through 14, be approved as distributed. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next, you have approval of the statements of expenses, revenues and expenses for our various funds. This doesn't require a motion to approve. We normally just receive it, but are there any questions? One thing I noticed, and when Ann gets here, our finance director, it's clear if you look at page 17, it looks like our water consumption is down as a community for the whole. So normally we should have more water sold because we've passed the peak quarters for water usage with just 2 months remaining in the billing year cycle, and those months would be this month and March. Low water use compared to the others, so I think we're going to run a little behind, but she can explain that. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, we'll receive and file the report. Next, we have approval of the Treasurer's Report for our DPW funds. You all have a copy of that. Is there any questions or a motion to approve?
Move to approve the treasurer's report.
Is there support by Nelson? No questions? If there are no questions, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Next item on our agenda is we have in our audience our Fire Chief, Duncan Murdoch. Duncan has sent a letter to the Commission regarding water mains and aged water mains and facilities. So, Duncan, we're pleased to have you here. I'd appreciate it very much if you come and address the Commission. So thank you.
Thank you for having me, Chair and Commission. One of the reasons I'm here tonight is I'm one of those guys that I do a lot of
forecasting out. I do it with the fire service, with fire trucks, my equipment. So I tend to forecast the needs of the fire department over a course of 5, 8, 10, 15 years out. And in doing so, I started analyzing our water system throughout Groseal and the needs of the fire department when it comes to water supply. In doing so, I acquired the last report we did in 12, I think it was, the water report in 12. And then along with the ISO report that we did back in, we did that in 12 too. And the reason I'm here is I was looking at some of the mains and some of the long-term hydrant replacement, service repairs, things of that nature. Water mains that date back into the 30s, correct me if I'm wrong, that definitely need replacement. They're actually too small for the fires, becoming too small for the fire service just due to their age, and the inside diameter starting to shrink based on water needs of the fire department. Single hub fire departments or fire hydrants, things of that nature. One of the biggest things that we're finding with our aging hydrant system, based on the fact that they're dry hydrants and they leak at the bottom, and sometimes we try to keep up on them. The water department's very good about that, but every once in a while we'll get a frozen hydrant. And that's critical in some areas for us where the distance between the fire hydrants are so great. And with the fire service, trying to regroup and double back in the fire service, trying to lay hose is problematic when you're trying to get something done. One of the other things is, my two big things is East River and West River Loop, finishing those two loops. Those are 6-inch mains. I'm looking that hopefully in the future that we can possibly get that done, because those mains are, I think they're 30s, if I'm not mistaken, 30s. So I'm guessing the inside diameter of those two mains are this big around. So, and just to give you a heads up on our fire equipment, one of my smallest trucks pulls 1,250 gallons a minute. My largest truck pulls 2,250 gallons a minute, and that main won't give me that kind of water, not even close. As we move forward, we did an ISO rating change back in 12. We went from a 6 as a community to a 5. As a volunteer fire department, along with the water system in this community, a 5 is a darn good number. Sure. We're just shy of a 4. There are some changes that have to take place in the fire department along with the water department. If we can get to a 4, that is probably, we're going to balance out with a 4 on our insurance ratings. You'll probably not see any change if we got any lower than that. That's another thing that I'm concerned with, that I'd like to get down to before I eventually retire and go play golf. The big one too is hydrant maintenance. They're good about keeping up on hydrant maintenance. One of my concerns, it goes right back to the original conversation. We do it annually, and under the American Water Works Act, the NFP Act, the NFPA standards, annually is the given time to do all the maintenance on the hydrants. But because they leak, I think that's problematic. At this point in time, I think we should be doing it every 6 months just to keep up on it, and make sure that they're not leaking. So we do have leaky hydrants. We had a house fire in Lighthouse Point where we had a hydrant froze, so a few years back. So just to give you an idea, it does occur. That being said, with the exterior water mains, the hydrant issues that are aging, they work, but they're aging, is our interior water system. Some of our water systems interior are old. Jewel Colony. I think that's one of our oldest water systems on Groseal. Jewel Colony was one of the first ones here. Then, of course, Potawatomi Woods, and the rest of them they're starting to get older and older and older. If we don't plan, and I know you are, but if we don't plan, we're going to be caught all of a sudden with a whole lot of repair work all at once. And I'm hoping we can avoid that as a community and as commission and as fire chief. So, but the big concern for me is the first two biggest things for me is the loop system on East River and West River. I have some big structures on East River that I would have to take care of. Yes. And then the question is, why don't you go to the river? You can draft, which we do. But in the winter months, that water's out. The chances of me getting water in a draft in the winter months is almost slim. So
The risk of a fire in the winter is greater than in the summer, probably.
Absolutely. And then in the past, I think there was sporadic placement of hydrants. There is a set criteria for putting hydrants in commercially and residentially. We have some very light areas when it comes to hydrant placement. So, and John and I have talked, and Lorinda have talked, we need to move forward and start adding hydrants, even on part of an old system. So we need to add some hydrants. So basically, I'm here to help support the commission and do whatever it takes on my end to help you guys out on moving forward, on planning on upgrades and changes, and that's kind of why I stepped in.
Well, very good. I'm very pleased you're here. We've been working on water replacement issues for a number of years now. We started last year to do an actual plan to move forward, and we are still working on it for both water main replacement and for some road work on the island. And it's not going to be done this year, but I'm hoping in 2015 we can move forward with some kind of a bond issue. Included in that was the Church Road water main replacement, as you suggest in your letter, and East River. West River was not included. Our thought was on East River, if we're going to do the water main, that we could come back right after it, even though it's not under the road, and fix the road at the same time. We try to get federal money for that because East River's on the federal aid system. West River's not on it. And we hadn't had any water main replacement in our plan for West River. We're aware that it's old, and we did a small project by the gardens there, Westcroft Gardens last year, and we replaced 200 feet of water main. And that was calcified pretty bad when we dug it out. And I know what you're talking about. We have some samples of the pipe downstairs that we've dug out of water main breaks with all the calcium buildup in the inside of them. So that's a problem, and I appreciate you bringing it to us. And I appreciate your support. So we're going to continue working on the water mains, and I'm going to open it up for questions. But I do have a couple for John. John, would you come to the... John Keim directs our field operations and heads up our water system maintenance program. And John, how many times a year? Are you only doing it once now on the hydrants?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I know we're only down to 2 people. And
Right.
but you do winterize them, is that correct? All
Yes,
of them? And then they're sealed?
This year, every hydrant was maintained and winterized.
And
that
in
would
terms
do-
of leaking hydrants,
Yes.
have you been able to assess that?
You don't know until you go to use it. When we go to winterize, if there's water in it, we pump it out and we add antifreeze to keep it from freezing.
Right.
But you don't know if that valve's leaking until you actually go to use it. And when he needs to use it, he needs it now. You don't.
And that raises another question to the fire chief. I saw it on the newscast this past week that some communities are asking people to dig out around their fire hydrants in their front yards. That would be a good idea to get that in the newspaper.
It is.
If you haven't.
I think the water department actually put that on the water bills, if I'm not mistaken.
When did you
Did.
hear that? What did you say? I just didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
That people need to dig
They need
snow
to clean
around.
out snow around the fire hydrants? Thanks.
The problem is with the amount of snow, this has been an unusual winter, and with the amount of snow that we have had, hydrants have gotten buried, and then all of a sudden we forgot where they were, or people forgot, that kind of situation. And believe it or not, I did a lot of driving around during the course of those heavy snows. Contractors were burying them. I even had a couple contractors tell me I don't have any place to put the snow. I said, then put it in their front yard. I said, but not on the hydrant, because a hydrant, not only does it directly affects the homeowner in front of them, it affects all 15 homes around them. So a fire hydrant isn't just a single household's responsibility, it's the responsibility of a neighborhood to make sure that that hydrant is clear. So,
And we have cleared pretty much every hydrant as of this week. And there's a message on the water bill asking the customer to assist us, and Manager Ream made an announcement at the township board level as well to ask.
Well, it'd be good if it's too late for this week's paper.
It was put in the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
and management of the whole snow system between DPS, fire, and police, I think it was exceptional, and maybe I'm biased, but I thought the subs and the main drags all got cleaned properly and quickly and efficiently. So,
Well, I'll say it here that John led the cleanup. As you know, in our neighborhood roads, Wayne County never gets to the neighborhood roads. And so John took it upon himself after you and the police chief it came to the manager and asked that something be done because you're concerned people couldn't get in and out of their subs. You were concerned about emergency vehicles, so thank you for your support there.
It was a
But I think they
great
did
team
do a
effort.
great job.
Absolutely.
And that's just something we're going to talk about tonight. I want to when we talk about our road budget, that we've got to take some steps to it. This is an unusual year. It reminds me of the years we used to have when I was a child. But at least when you're a kid, everything seems bigger, so maybe that's the problem. I don't know. But at any rate, we have had a lot of snow. And it was in the subs. It was very difficult to get around. The questions for the chief from us. That.
We appreciate the fact that you've identified some of the shortcomings of our water system. We understand that. And 15 years ago, we had a pretty aggressive program put together, capital improvement program. About 12 years ago, the federal government stepped in and redirected our priorities to the sewer system. And it all comes to money. I mean, it all falls on the money and what we have, what funds are available, and where we can get those funds. We can only tax the residents to a certain point at some point in time. So being aware of all of that over the next 7 to 8 years, as these bonds start to drop off and money becomes, the availability of money becomes available, we'll certainly concentrate. But the loop on this island is critical, and we all understand that. We understood that 10 years ago. We understood it 15 years ago. And we've had a couple of attempts, again, to rectify the fact with the East River main in this section of West River, or less, correct me if I'm wrong, it's from the plant to Horseville?
Sure.
Going north.
Horse Mill to
Church.
Church Road has been done, that's 12-inch main, but from
From the plant to Church.
Church Road down to Riverview Court, that's all 6-inch.
Okay.
But then from Riverview Court to the plant, that's 8-inch. But it's deteriorating.
So our priorities obviously will be to loop the island, and then the internal infrastructure is all going to have to be put onto some kind of a system as soon as the federal government gets off our back and lets us spend our money the way we want to spend it and the way we think it would be effective. We'll certainly move in that direction. With regards to the water mains and snow removal, it becomes important for all the residents to devise. We're not going to get the support from Wayne County. We do not have the equipment or the manpower to do an adequate job or a good job here on the island. It's usually demand and hit and miss, and again, it's financial. We'd need to buy 2 or 3 fairly large service vehicles and we certainly don't want to take the roads away from Wayne County because they've already stopped doing enough, and they do own the roads. So I, for one, appreciate the fact that you're on top of it. I'm not too sure how we're going to address the hydrant issue without some kind of a study saying these are what we need. I think you need to go forward with that, telling us exactly, us as a commission and ultimately the township board, what we need to replace in priority. I mean, just to say we've got bad hydrants, do we have 1 or do we have 700? I mean, and ultimately we'll try to find the funding for that because they're expensive.
Well, again, so Hal can speak to this, putting a new hydrant on this old 6-inch on East River would probably be fruitless.
We understand
That would be a waste of money at this point in time. On some of the newer portions, though, where we have, the big thing for us is we have a lot of single hubbed hydrants out here. We enjoy now what they call the dual hubs, a new 4-inch on there, because we put we have a storage that goes on one end, but we also have a valve that goes on the other hub. So if I need the water supply out of that second hub, I got it without shutting down the hydrant. That's the whole purpose of the dual outlets on that hydrant. So, and that's what we practice, and that's how it works. But you're right, to put a hydrant on East River right now, on East River Road, That'd be a waste of money. If it breaks, if it blows up, it quits working, then we put a new hydrant in. But
Sure.
just to go do it right now on that main, I would say no. I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, and we don't intend to do that.
It's all fund driven.
Yeah.
We know that.
Absolutely.
And as soon as we get some access we have access to the money, but they keep spending it for us. So
I understand.
until that changes.
We have an upside coming. The public safety building comes off
Sure.
next year. So that's $200,000 a year right there.
Well, a number of bonds come off
Yeah.
over the next 7 years, and that's important for
Yeah.
us to move forward. Without that,
Right.
we just don't have the funding. And I mean, we can get the funding, but the burden goes on a taxpayer, and we don't want to do that anymore either.
Right.
So.
And I'm here to help. That's my main reason. I'm not here to, that's my only purpose of being here.
You are helping. I appreciate that.
So I want to help.
We also, a couple of years ago, we finished what's called a water reliability study that was submitted to the state, and it identified the weak points in our aged, old pipes. But I don't know to what extent it analyzed hydrants. It probably didn't deal with hydrants, did it?
It didn't address items, just pressures and flows.
Just flow pressure.
And efficient delivery of the pipe.
And tonight on our agenda later, we've taken bids to rebuild what's called a pressure reducing valves that are on the toll bridge side of the toll bridge. There's the 16-inch water main that feeds the island, comes over or under the bridge, and there's a pressure reducing valve there. The cost we're looking at is $240,000 to replace the valves. But Les, how old are the valves? They're 50, 60 years old?
They were there before I came to work for the township.
So they're 80 years old. Only kidding. But at any rate, so, we're working on things.
No, I understand.
And the 2 new homes or 3 new homes built on Park Lane near Horse Mill, we're extending the water main there as soon as the snow melts. That's several hundred feet. So anyway, I do appreciate you being here tonight.
Just real quick, I have one little funny story. I live on Country Club Lane over off of Ferry Road, and John remembers this, about 2 summers ago? I hear this train wreck coming through my house at about 2 in the morning. Remember that? Remember the valve blowing out into the pit? And I couldn't believe it. It sounded like a water leak in the house. I go run outside, don't see anything. My wife says the house is blowing up. So I go out into the street, and there's 8 inches of water in the street. Don't know where it's coming from. And what happened? One of the valves blew. One of the valves.
Cheap bolts.
It was. It's exactly what it was. It was they steel bolts that rotted away.
Oh, wow.
We do have a preliminary plan with Duncan to replace at least 5 of those one-port hydrants this year.
All right. And is it in the budget, John? Did you? Okay, good. And I asked Lorinda if did you bring the map up with the water main breaks?
No, I forgot it's downstairs.
Well, how many water main, maybe we don't need the map, but
We had 26 last year,
26 in 2013,
and 9 so far this year.
9 so far this year. Now, everybody, if you listen to the news, Detroit especially is having water main breaks with this extremely cold weather. We'll probably have some when the weather gets warm, too, the expansion on the pipe.
City of Detroit has 160 they haven't even fixed.
That was on the news tonight.
But they got a big one they're working on tonight.
I think it was almost 500 main breaks, and they're 160 off.
All the communities are having them. We're no different, but the older the pipe, the more chance of a break. So I appreciate it. If there are other comments or questions?
I was just going to ask John and Duncan on the hydrants leaking in the spring or when we get the thaw. Can we test them to see which ones are leaking? Can we find out? Is that the time
Normally
to do
you'll
it?
find it when you go to do your hydrant maintenance.
When you're going to flush the hydrants, you'll find them?
Okay. Yeah.
And how often do we flush? Once a year?
Twice.
Twice?
Spring and fall.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Duncan. John? Oh, Phil?
I had one question, and maybe Sahil answered it. You mentioned that you felt you wouldn't have the flow necessary to run the 2 pumper trucks. Has that been tested? I kind of understood from you, Sahil, that we really don't know what the actual flow would be.
When we performed the reliability analysis, we tested 25 random hydrants throughout the township. And the goal is to make sure that we get at least 1,200 gallons per minute from that's the requirement by MDQ. Some areas showed some deficiencies in the flows, and those are the areas that we identified in the study to be addressed eventually, part of the improvement program. What you run into is when you have small mains, similar to the one on East River Road. If you have a fire, what we test them is at what we call a 20-pound residual pressure. If you open the hydrant, you end up with 600 gallons. His pumper is trying to pump 1,200. Two things will happen. Either he'll use a collapsible hose so he won't collapse the main, or if he uses a hard hose, the main will collapse, or it'll suck the hot water tanks from the house. That's something he has to be very careful about to make sure that when he's pumping, he's not pumping more than the capacity of the hydrant that he's tapped into. So these are concerns, and if that condition persists, it's going to become a violation, but hopefully with the program that Ted's talking about, within 5-6 years, we can start funding these water mains. This issue will dissipate and we'll end up with a reliable system, more so than now. Luckily, they're doing a great job fighting them by going to 2 hydrants, 3 hydrants in different areas. So, but the goal is to get at least 1,200 gallons per minute from every hydrant.
Any other comments? Thank you, Duncan, for being here. Appreciate it. Next item on our agenda, we have Kevin and Kim Albright here. You all received a letter. It's page 23 of your packet from the Albrights, along with several photos of the flooding problem they experienced last year. I'd invite you up to the podium and you can address the... So this is Kevin and Kim Albright of 27105 West River Road. Welcome to the commission.
Excited. Have you seen the video that we presented?
I've seen the photos. I haven't seen the...
Oh, I think that's what we wanted to do.
You want the video recorded?
Yeah, I mean, basically.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is see if there's any way that we can get the issue addressed, the problem that we see. We've tried to talk to the DPS. We've talked to the county road commission, and we just don't seem to be getting answers from anyone. Nothing scheduled. We have absolutely no communication back from the county at all.
And it's been ongoing since July 2nd. I mean, it's not been idle. I mean, I've had communications up at the beginning of January, and they won't call us back. You know, we filed repeated online complaint forms.
Well, we've had similar experience with the county calling you back from their engineering department. But at any rate, this is your video.
Mm-hmm.
Can you hit the play button?
Oh, it's playing right now.
You need to hit play.
You want to talk your way through it? Can you see it?
Can you see? Do you have glasses?
Yes, no, I can see it.
Okay.
You see, it says play. If you hit play, it'll actually play the video. This is like.
Is there a vocal on this, or no?
There is some audio. It's just.
You can hear water rushing and birds singing. No rain.
But basically, what you're seeing is the path of the water flows from the south side of Loma Circle through my neighbor's backyard, directly into my backyard, and it happened extreme when the flooding occurred, but this is an ongoing problem. The water always flows that way. On the north side of Loma, there's actually what used to be a ditch. There's a drain that goes underneath Loma Circle that I believe is supposed to drain from the south to the north because there's no ditch on the south side of Loma.
Now, you're talking near West River Road?
Right. In that packet, I tried to do some Google Earth pictures that kind of show the layout of it. There's a storm drain on West River at Loma Circle. It's on the south side, but there's no ditch on the south side of Loma. The only ditch is on the north side of Loma. So for the water to get to that storm, and there is a culvert at West River underneath Loma, so the water could flow from the north side to the south side to make it to the storm sewer. But the way, either from erosion or whatever time, the water doesn't flow that way.
And you say this came roaring into the back of your home and knocked the door wall out?
We were
through the whole house?
Oh, yeah, it imploded the door and then blew the front windows out.
It actually blew a pillow.
It
came
up
right through the house and knocked the
two
front,
levels of the house.
knocked the picture window out?
Yeah.
And you did not call the township at that point?
Oh, absolutely. We called the police. We called the fire department. We called the this has been ongoing, and we have spoken to, God rest his soul, Barry tried, and a lot to help us with the county. We've spoken to Lorinda. No one has ever once said that we need to come and address this commission. I mean, we've been going back and forth.
Well, normally the county's responsible for drains, particularly drains along the roads.
Right. The county informed us that the township is responsible for the drain.
For the maintenance. That they own the drain, but they're responsible for the maintenance. They also informed us that in the fall they're waiting for the leaves to fall off the tree.
That's not what the drain code says, but I think Sohail's here, our engineer. But nevertheless, we've bitten the bullet in certain cases and tried to help people because you can't rely on the county to come out and help. I mean, that's a simple fact.
Bill, I think Sohail has some history on this project.
All right. Well, we've read your letter. Everybody read the letter in detail. Mm-hmm. We all know you have a problem. My feeling on it is, I'll let Sohail address it in a minute. He's our engineer. And John, if you have anything to offer, you could come up to the podium too. My feeling on it is that I'll ask our engineers, with the commission's support, to look at your problem once the snow melts, so we can see what we got. Obviously, we can't do much right now, and talk with you about it, and then we'll try to get the county out with us and see what we can work out together.
Are you speaking of Charles Raines? Are you talking about the engineer Charles Raines?
This is Charles Raines right here.
Okay, well, they've been out.
They came out.
Bill
All right, I'll let him speak
yeah.
then. I'll let him speak, but here's the issue that we run into. They say they're not responsible. We go touch one of their drains, their inspectors are right out there, stopping us in some cases from what we're trying to do. So that's what we've run into. And I'll let Sohail, and not on your area, but in other areas. So every time we try to touch a drain, boom, all of a sudden we got to get a permit from the county to do it, and they wanted us to pay them. So we run into those frustrations well, but you've come to the right group. We'll try to help you. Now, I understand there's some litigation ongoing. I don't know, is there active litigation? No?
We initially filed damage claims with the township and the county, but both of them were rejected.
All right.
So there is no
they were just
ongoing litigation.
Well, I'll let Sohail see if you could inform us a little better.
Unfortunately, I wasn't out there, but Bill from our office met with Barry and Marty from Wayne County on site. And right after that, there was a claim filed with Wayne County, and at that point, the claim adjuster contacted us to see what the township can do, and he said it's a county issue. But because there is a claim, they kind of backed away from doing anything. We disagree totally that it's not their problem. It is their problem. It's their road. It's their drain. The township owns drainage districts in the form of separated sewers, but not open drains as ditches and roads. So if the DPS Commission wishes us to contact them again and see if we can initiate any action on their part, we can try that with your help to get them to move on this issue. We don't believe it's a township issue, and we believe it needs to be addressed, but we believe the county should be addressing it.
Well, what we've done before, and I've made the commitment that between our director and our staff and myself and some other commissioners, we'll try to set up a meeting when spring comes, when the snow's gone, and see what we can do about bringing everybody to one location with you and see if we can't get some action plan developed. What I'm saying is I'm in favor of trying to do something.
Right.
I can't do it right now.
Right. But you understand, this is like a hazardous situation.
Sure.
If someone would have been in that lower level, my mother was about 45 minutes prior to it happening. If my kids would have been down there, the way that water came in and blew those windows out,
it picked up a 300-pound treadmill, slammed it all the way across, so it was a tremendous amount of water. So
the problem still exists, and when we had that early thaw in December, it started up again. And I have over 6 pages of communications back and forth. I've talked to Commissioner Palmera, I've talked to Chris Wojtowicz,
And they don't even return our calls.
No.
Never. Even before,
and
they just won't get
I'd
back
ask
to
you
us.
before you leave tonight to leave your phone numbers with Lorinda. It's not on your letter, I don't think.
The online
So we need to
complaint
know how to
form
contact you.
that you're talking, the damage form that they're talking about, they denied that form, as well as Roseville Township Insurance. So if that's what he's saying in the litigation, there's no litigation.
I'm saying that. I didn't know the status of it.
Right.
So I'm correct.
So when they closed it, and he did tell us, he told Kevin that on November the 4th, there was a plan in place to fix it until we filed an online damage form.
Who told you that?
Chris Wojciechowicz.
Really?
On 11/4. And we have a letter denying the claim. 4 months later, then they're going to say, they decided it was an act of God 4 months later.
Yeah, you have that.
What position does Chris hold?
He's the risk claims manager.
Okay.
So he processes the claims. Kevin had a lot of conversations with him.
But anything that the commission can do to help us to move this forward, we really want to try to get this resolved. It's really put a lot of things on hold. Our house has been in disarray for 7-8 months. Every time it rains, you go look in your backyard. We're looking as the river's starting up again. We try to address the problem, we spent $14,000 in drainage about 5-6 years ago because we were getting a lot of water. About 8 or 9 years ago, we talked to the township, they talked to the county, they came out, they lowered the culvert in front of our house because our front yard was flooding so bad from the water. We thought that would work this time too. We talked to the township, they talked to the county, the problems addressed, nothing this time. So whatever, the commission can do, we really would appreciate.
Well, I'll let other commissioners speak. I'm very willing to try to help you.
I can understand your concern about not wanting to wait until the spring to do anything, because then you're going to start having this water issue right away. And if they start to look at it that time, going forward, it could take a long time after that. Frankly, I don't know anything about this stuff. I don't know if there's anything that can be looked at before then or not. So, Hill, do you know if there's some way of getting the ball moving prior to the spring? Not actually physically doing it, but I mean getting things in motion.
I don't think the township is able to undertake any action without a permit from Wayne County, and that's going to be a lengthy, costly task that has to be designed and submitted for approval. And it's something that they should be responsible for. I don't see why the township...
So, Hill, I guess you misunderstood what I was saying. What I'm saying is that not for us to do it necessarily, but to drag them by their heels down to here and get them to get on board with this prior to the spring and then beginning that very slow process.
That's what I mentioned earlier, that we need the help of the township and the commission to push him to come out and do something about it, and we should start right away. So,
Does Bill Bettendorf and your staff, do you have an idea what needs to be done?
No, the county was going to investigate what needs to be done and undertake the proper action. Then, once the claim was filed, they kind of backed off. So.
That's bad.
So, Hal, I want to see us do something on this as far and be in contact, and I'll work with you on that.
I'll initiate the contact, get some names and phone numbers. We probably have to go outside Chris to do something through engineering, through a drain office, and we'll get it moving right away. So,
well, if you contacted Mr. Palomero, maybe he can. Jim, working with him, maybe
from reading the Albright's letter, it looks like everybody that's contacted, they just kind of keep pointing to somebody else, and you keep going down the list, and all of a sudden you're making a loop. So we need to...
When the claim manager called our office, right away I said, why are you calling us? I mean, it's a county issue, and it's not a township issue. Of course, they want to defer anything from their desk. So we have to push harder in a different direction to get it taken care of.
And of course, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the county maintenance division were to do the work, they wouldn't have to get a permit.
The roads division may not need a permit. That's correct.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Ted.
So, excuse me. Is this in any way connected with the drainage issue from Hawthorne and into that area? Or?
No, that's totally independent, and that's been addressed. I think we have a solution for that one, and we're waiting for the weather to break so it can be undertaken.
Now, that's a township issue?
It's a combination of township, Hawthorne, and county, but again, we decided...
It's not part of a road, Ted.
It's not a road drainage.
Sure.
It is mostly Hawthorne drainage, but they were able to give us an easement to put a ditch in there, and the township will be undertaking that work in the spring.
Well, I guess taking off on what Jim said, I think what what we need to do is get some kind of contact going. Before we can move anyway, we've got to get a rejection, which we know we're going to get from Wayne County, same way you've gotten a rejection. Before we can put what little muscle this commission has and what little muscle the township board has with Wayne County, we can certainly put it behind it. But we need to move something forward to try to get them to make a decision or tell us flat, no, we're not going to do anything, and then make a decision as to which way we're going to move from there. We've got to get a rejection before we can, because they'll stall this thing forever.
Sure.
And,
Right, yeah, absolutely, Ted. We want to get it moving, and we want to get it moving now. And whatever it's going to take.
We'll initiate contact tomorrow and see what happens.
Okay.
If we get any rejection, we'll come back to you.
Well, I think if you're willing to step up and do the work,
I'll work with
that Jim is an elected official, so that would work.
Great.
Jim Budney is an elected township trustee, so.
Okay.
John, I think John has something to say.
Okay,
John?
well, go ahead.
Just to let everybody know, Barry was on top of it from the start. I was in their driveway. They were out of town, if I'm not mistaken, right? When the flood happened. Okay, so I was on the scene from the start. Barry took the bull by the horns, did everything he could. He had a handshake agreement with Duke Hodges. And right after the leaves were off the trees, just like it states in her letter, engineering was going to go out there and do what they had to do to engineer it.
The county engineering department?
Correct.
And
Duke
that's where
Hodges
it
was the
stopped?
man. I was involved in that meeting as well, so was Bill Bendendorf.
And that's where it stopped?
And that's where it's at.
well, supposedly, not in defense of Wayne County, but if they're treating an online claim as legal action, and no legal action was brought, they're just using it for an escape. In my opinion, they're just using it for an escape. Because generally, when somebody does file litigation, it brings everybody to a halt and they all run and let the courts decide it. But from what I'm hearing from you, that wasn't done.
It looks like it was just a claim, and it was the claim that stopped them from doing anything. And that's just unacceptable.
Yeah, we have the claim right here. But
The original proposal from Duke Hodges was put a pipe or even open ditch it the rest of the way down the hill to West River Road. And all they do is build a little berm to keep the water off of their property. It was.
Well, I'd ask in the interim when the snow melts, before we get any spring rains, if you'll keep an eye on it, you can work with, as far as I'm concerned, if you got to do an emergency measure to do something to prevent the flooding, I'd be okay with that, within reason. And you can work with Sahil and Mr. Budney.
The only thing you could possibly do to keep the water out of their backyard is build a berm. But then it's a lot of dirt, and you'd have to keep it. It goes to their neighbors before it even gets to them. So what it is, all the water running down the hill from Loma Circle comes right in their backyard. Now, granted, we had 4.3 inches of rain that day. But every time it rains or you get a thaw, they get some water. They're not going to see that 4.3 like they did that day.
And I just need to ask one thing. Are there attorneys involved with Wayne County at all? Your attorneys?
No.
Okay.
We've contacted attorneys, but there is no ongoing litigation.
Okay.
And none of our attorneys have contacted the county other than the initial damage one.
All right.
So if you would
That's important, only the fact that they'll use it for a stone wall.
Are these your photographs?
And we can do a lot of work and it won't go anyplace.
No, he's absolutely right about Barry. He tried his hardest. And there was a plan. And that's exactly right. But I did want to let you know, on August the 5th, Bill Bettendorf met us at our home and walked our property with us. And he said that the plan was to put a ditch down the side to West River, to that culvert. They came out and they put stakes. They surveyed, because they were in our garden. And they surveyed both our neighbors and our yard. Now, those stakes are still there. They're covered with snow. But he did meet us, and he walked the property with Kevin and I both.
Right. All right. Well, Mr. Bettendorf works for House of Back.
Right. Now, could I ask you a question? When they did the survey, did they shoot that drain, it would be the west side of Loma, the drain where all the water comes from. Did they shoot that to see which way the
I
drain's
have to
supposed
look at the drawings if they have drawings to find out.
The reason I'm saying this is there's never been a ditch on the south side of Loma. I mean, you can look at it, there's never been a ditch there. There used to be a ditch on the north side. And there is a culvert down on West River to direct the water from the north side to the south side.
Right.
So logically, and my brother's a civil engineer, he looked at it, he goes, well, logically, this drain should go that way. But you don't think drains go south to north, but if that drain was originally designed to go that way, that would make sense because then everything would drain
Well,
to the ditch on the north
all right,
side.
we have a big agenda.
I understand.
Why don't you exchange phone numbers and leave your phone numbers here? We're going to get on it and try to address your issues.
Thank you very much.
And I appreciate you being here. We have one other person in the audience tonight, Mr. Rossi.
Plishka.
Plishka. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
How are you?
I'm doing just fine, thank you.
And you're on Loma Circle as well.
I am, and it's very interesting to hear the Albright's plight because it seems very
Come up to the
familiar
podium.
to me. Because as I was watching the video that just so happened to be filmed on the 1st of July, a day that I will never forget because I live on the north side of Loma Circle, right by the Robinsons, the log cabin house, and I have on that day that 4.3 inches of rain, and I had a great deal of water in my yard. It was up to here, and even though it never actually entered my home, I was panic-stricken that it would, and then I contacted these fine people, Barry Sedlock.
All right, well, do you want to address us?
I'm sorry. And so it's very interesting to hear their plight because it seems that there's a systemic problem. It's not just the north side or the south side. The drainage in that area just seems to be broken in general. And I am very fortunate because my problem resides on public property. And you find folks were able to resolve that, but they got bound up in the county. And that's what's going to cause them all kinds of...
Well, we hope we can get through that. But we're going to address your issue, too, and we're taking bids so that when spring comes, we're going to clean that ditch out.
And I guess that's kind of the main reason that I came, but then I kind of got sidetracked with the Albright's situation, and that's very disturbing to me. But I do appreciate all the work that you've done, and I do look forward to having my personal problem resolved. And I wish that, in general, the drainage around Loma Circle, which has got a bigger problem than just my little problem, it gets resolved as well.
Well, I hope we can, too. I hope we can make an impact on your property with what we're proposing to do and solve their problem as well.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. John, you're leaving, but the next item on the agenda is a wastewater plan. Who's going to cover that?
Me.
All right.
I got it.
Lorinda?
Okay, Joe gave me an update on all the projects over there. On the HVAC air handler Unit 2 replacement, he said that the unit is in place, final connections being made. DNA Mechanical is scheduling the manufacturer to come out and provide training and startup. The work has started on removing the rooftop unit from the RBC building. On the elevator, the work has not started. Lardner Elevator says the work should start in about 2 weeks. They've been behind schedule to the volume of emergency calls that they've been receiving. And also the parts for the various jobs haven't been delivered to them in a timely manner due to the weather. The automatic transfer switch has been installed. The final testing has not taken place, but is expected to take place before the week was out. They had a couple of complications with the testing of the new unit. The first was the generator voltage regulator. It had to be replaced before Ferndale Electric and Bridgeway Power could test. Bridgeway Power replaced the voltage regulator on January the 20th. Ferndale returned to test it on the 23rd of January, and the first test was aborted due to an inaccurate reading on the generator voltage meter. When the power transferred to the generator, it caused the variable frequency drives for the raw sewage pumps to blow up and several circuit breakers to trip. At this time, Ferndale Electric called Bridgeway Power and explained to them what happened. Bridgeway Power showed up the following day with a load bank tester and performed a load bank test. The test showed only that as more load was applied to the generator, the frequency would drop, indicating a problem with the engine and not the generator itself. Verbally, Bridgeway Power is recommending the top set be replaced, which basically is a tune-up for diesel engines.
All right. That's an update on the wastewater treatment plant fixes. Any questions?
I have a question on the elevator. You say they're behind schedule due to emergency calls, and also parts haven't been delivered. Parts for our job or parts?
They said for various jobs, whatever that means.
So they're basically doing
They're
other work
behind.
and not coming to ours. Did we have any schedule in our contract for them to perform this work?
That I don't remember. I don't.
Well, that's a point to check then.
Okay.
Would you do that?
You're going to check on that? Okay.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on. But before we do, John went down and got the map of the water main breaks.
Thank you.
In terms of location, John, is there anything that stands out? Where are we having most of the breaks? What line?
Meridian and West River.
West River. West River from where to where?
Between
The plant.
Church and Riverview Court.
So
Mainly right by Riverview Court. And that's causing a flooding issue for the neighbor.
How many breaks have we had there?
What's your mic?
3? Okay, so we'll have to look at West River again.
So far, and 3 of them.
I'm going to try to move the agenda along. We've got a lot of budget stuff to go through. Update on Park Lane, Lakewood, and Balmoral, Martin Lane water improvements. We have a memo from Sahil on page 31 indicating because of the cold weather, all the water main projects have been deferred. They're all small jobs. They're going to be deferred until spring. The next item on the agenda is, we got a report on the water main breaks. Anything else you'd like to say on that?
No, I don't have anything else.
Any questions? All right. Moving along, discussion on the chip seal items, and I'd like you to address this, Sahil, in your letter to Wayne County.
We received an authorization from the township manager to initiate contact with Wayne County to address chip sealing various roads in the township. We started by calling the roads division, Robert Conrad. After lengthy discussion about the process and his approval of it, he recommended that we go to the permit department. We tend to shy away from going through permits, so we decided to go through the engineering department first. It's a higher authority that kind of can make better decisions on technical issues, especially new issues that are proposed that haven't been tried before. So we contacted Rana Gazinski, who requested the specifications that we were considering. We submitted the specifications to him. He looked at them and he came back with a question on whether the chip sealing is going to jeopardize federal highway funds because they may impact some ADA ramps on these roads. Our response was that we will be willing to adjust the ADA ramps. Please assess them and come back to us. So far, he hasn't yet. I
need to stop you there. Does everybody know what an ADA ramp is?
No.
It's where the sidewalk ends at a road, Ron. And, you know, there's those little ripples that have been put in for handicap. What he's saying is that he can explain that, but a double chip seal will raise the level of the road so it may impact the sidewalk. Now, fortunately, we don't have that many sidewalk locations.
No, we don't. But again, we had to give him the benefit of the doubt. So we offered that he reassess those conditions and get back with us. And so far, because of the weather, he hasn't been able to get out there and look at them. We told him how critical it is time-wise to have an approval by April, and he promised that he will give us approval by April. So we're trying to hold him to his word, and hopefully we'll have that program going. So. You're aware that...
But I want to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
If they approve the specs, we still have to get a permit then. Will it be a general permit?
It may be a general permit through his department, through engineering, to approve the process. I will fight as much as we can with your help to avoid going through the permit department in Wayne, because that's going to
I understand. Okay.
complicate the process and cost lots of money. We have the 4 roads that we're looking at now. You have the ferry from Canal to East River between Manchester and Grove, Horsemead between Meridian and Park Lane, and East River between Ferry and Grosse Ile Parkway. Hopefully they will approve those, and we can get them completed before the end of the year. Now, what is delaying some work on our part is to go out and assess the condition of these roads. Some areas may require some maintenance. There could be some alligatoring or some potholes that need to be repaired before we chip seal. So we haven't been able, because of the weather, to get out there and do measurements and do assessment. And as soon as the weather breaks and the snow melts, we'll be out there as a priority one to get this taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Okay, the next is a report from you again, Sohail, on the drain cleanouts affecting the Rucker Road flooding problem across the airport property. Everybody has a written report with a lot of photographs, and I just ask you to summarize it real quickly.
Okay.
We all know what we have found in the drains: rocks, pieces of board, a tarp, stone.
Right.
Large.
Briefly, on December 3rd, the township signed an agreement with Deutsche Industrial Services to come out and clean the 2 sewers that you see on this diagram. One that drains from Rucker all the way through Frenchman's Creek. It starts as an 18-inch sewer, it turns into a 24-inch sewer. In the process of cleaning and televising, they encountered severe clogging in the form of debris from boulders to concrete chunks to wood to tarps to cement bags. You have the pictures, I understand, in your package. So, in essence, what was causing this blockage was the amount of debris that Deutsche encountered and removed. And with that being removed, hopefully the drainage will get to be improved quite a bit, so we don't have the backup that's been happening in the backyards on Rucker. Hopefully they don't have water sitting there for a long period of time. With these obstructions removed, that should work out great. What remains to be done is at the chamber, right here by Frenchman's Creek. The chamber was designed initially as a silt removal structure. It has a 90-degree elbow, 36-inch that's in it, and the sediment built up clogged it. So what we recommend is there's no need for the elbow to be in place. We like that removed, and we like all the baffles to be removed. So again, when the flow comes in, it will still settle in that chamber and it will require maintenance, but it will not clog the outlet, so that should enhance also the flow out of the chamber into the creek. A couple other areas, when the weather improves, need to be still televised and cleaned. And the 36-inch that passes by the township building also was cleaned. And as far as you know, most of the improvement except the structure are in place, and hopefully we won't have any flooding again.
So he'll just make perfectly clear, we did not find Jimmy Hoffa, is that correct?
No.
Okay.
Very good. So in terms of the future work that needs to be done to finish the work we started, I guess I feel like you should come up with a cost estimate for us to do the things we need to do yet, if you would, on these items.
Sure.
And bring it back to us for April, maybe?
I don't think they're going to be as major as this cleanup. They're much minor, scope-wise, minor scope. For example, we like to tackle the same culvert that the county tackled under Meridian Road another time with this contractor to make sure it's cleaned, and a couple other areas that John
Well, we need to complete the job.
Sure.
And if you could bring back a cost estimate at our April meeting.
Okay.
I would appreciate that very much.
It may be through a form of a memo if you don't mind to Lorinda.
Oh, that's fine. That's fine.
Great.
And
So Hyle,
Yes.
structurally, everything was okay? I mean, reading the report,
There are
about cracks.
There are cracks, but we don't believe they're structurally detrimental to the sewer at this point. Eventually, it will be good to replace the sewer, but we don't believe at this point it's in a condition that necessitates that. So,
Okay, even the old clay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't see any removed chunks, any collapsed chunks from the pipe. Yes, there are cracks, but again,
No,
it's
falling
nothing that's
out. Okay.
necessitates replacement.
any questions? Further questions? Jim?
Selfishly, my condo is that called the French drain where it goes right in the Frenchman's Creek? What's that structure called, the cement structure where the water flows into the
A
creek?
trough, you mean, or the culvert? Is it a big culvert in the back, or the outfall pipe? Okay.
So the way it was designed, I mean, I'm not here to complain, but my neighbors are concerned that when the water goes through that trough, with the silt, it moves pretty quick through there. And once this is fixed, it's going to move even quicker. That there's some silt built up at the bottom of the canal there, and it's going to affect boats going up and down the canal. So one of the neighbors suggested maybe if you could, this is going to cost money, of course, if you angled that structure a little bit more to the left, it wouldn't all go out in the same place. Just a question.
We'll look at the outfall. I mean, if there is an issue with the flow being very strong coming out of the pipe, there are other measures where we can put in place to slow down the flow.
Okay.
And that's an option, but if it's a big pipe, diverting it at an angle will cost lots of money.
That's what I thought, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And we didn't really, as I recall, we didn't really satisfy ourselves that we know how the outfall's working. We were going to dye test it once we got the pipe cleaned.
Right, but that wasn't necessary after we televised the system. They sent a camera and they sent a person
all the way?
to look at it, so we know how it's flowing. So initially, we didn't see the outfall. There was no way to determine where the outfall was, but as they cleaned it, they found it, and it is visible and doesn't necessitate any dye testing.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll look at it and see if something develops in terms of your concern. We'll look at that.
Thanks.
But
Thank you.
You're going to put a memo together to address at our April meeting to kind of cost estimate
Yes.
what it's going to take to complete the job. I would also ask, did anybody have an extra copy of this report they don't need to keep? Or we were going to send it to Mr. Milge.
I can make a copy for him. That's not a
Is
problem.
everybody going to keep their copies of it?
No, I'm not.
You're not? Okay.
Recycle mine.
All right, if you're going to recycle, there's a copy for Mr. Milge.
Okay, thank
Would you
you.
mail that to Mr. Milge?
I sure will.
Your phone number's on it, Brenda.
Thanks, Ohio. We're going to get to the next action item. I want to make sure that we remember that Mr. Albright, Mrs. Albright, make sure you leave your phone numbers, how we can get a hold of you if you haven't already with
I have yours.
Lorinda. Okay. And you're welcome to stay for our whole meeting. I just wanted to make sure we got. And here are your photos. You can pick these up before you get ready to go. The next item. Is there any further items on any on the storm sewer? Okay. Is the pressure reducing valve? You have a report and recommendations in your packet, and so Hal, you're on again for that.
The pressure reducing valve project started as a maintenance of the existing valves, 8-inch valves in place, and the scope changed to replacement, then to replacement with an 8-inch and a 16-inch. And as this scope changed, the requirements of the pit also changed with it. Putting a 16-inch valve necessitated 2 valves on both sides of it, and the valves needed some clearance. We found that the pit was recessed, so the roof had to be raised. And to fit these valves in a very confined structure also caused some issues with getting the proper couplings in there in place. So eventually the cost went up quite a bit. So as you can see in front of you, it's the lowest bid is close to $241,000. Including the alternate. The alternate includes also putting a valve downstream of the pit, because now the only valves that are in place are on Meridian Road across the bridge, and we felt for maintenance purposes it's better to have a valve right downstream of the pit to make sure we have an isolation in case of future repairs. So what the project now consists of, like I said, is putting in place a single pressure reducing valves. One is an 8-inch and one is a 16-inch to a 12-inch. They're all SCADA ready. They are controlled. They could be controlled remotely if you ever pursue a SCADA process. In the base bid, we looked at waterproofing the structure, putting a new sump pump in, changing the electrical service. Again, what you'll end up with is a very nice PRV pit if you undertake the base bid. Because of the timing and the work involved, we also looked at an alternate bid where the contractor can come in with a precast structure, put it all outside, assemble everything, then remove the existing pit, drop the other one, and put the couplings in place and connect it. That will save some time, and you end up with a brand new structure that has more room on the inside for proper size couplings, and it'll be 100% waterproof with link seals and all the bells and whistles to give you a structure that is going to be hopefully 50 years old when it requires any work at it. So that's what we have in front of you. You have a base bid, you have an alternate bid, and you have the alternate add for $14,000 to add additional gate valves. The gate valve, again, is very highly recommended from our part to put downstream of the pit so we don't have to sit and worry about how we're going to have 100% shut off across the bridge of the main so we can do repairs on it. I know the cost is a little bit more than what was originally anticipated. The original budget was $50,000 to just perform maintenance, and now we're up to $241,000.
So, Hyle, I got a question.
Sure.
What size PRV valve are we putting in there?
We're putting two valves. We're putting an 8-inch on the 8-inch bypass, and we're putting a 12-inch, 16 to 12 on the main 16-inch pipe.
You're putting in a 12-inch PRV valve.
16 to 12. 16 housing, 12-inch on the inside.
Okay.
And the reason is 16 to 16 was cost prohibitive and plus wasn't as reliable as 16 to 12. That was highly recommended by the supplier of the single valve. So, but putting it again on the 16-inch necessitated two valves on either side for future maintenance.
Now, Les, I know that you were concerned about what's going to take place there. Are you okay with that?
I can open the drawings and show you exactly what's going to be taking place, if you like.
Yeah, I didn't know. Is there a bypass already in there, Sahara?
Actually, let me open the drawings best. The original setup was two 8-inch PRVs with nothing in between. So the main line, the 16-inch, was closed. The valve here was shut off. All the flow was going through both 8 inches. Now, the request of the township was to put in a 16-inch PRV. So what we did is, instead of replacing the two 8-inch valves and the 16 valve, we decided we'll abandon one 8-inch valve. We'll just replace one 8-inch on one bypass as a bypass and put in a new 16-inch on the main line. What that necessitated is this setup over here. For us to put a PRV on the 16-inch, we have to put two valves on both sides for maintenance. And we're replacing the 8-inch over here. We're not putting any PRVs on that branch over there. So that could be shut off and they're not needed except in emergency cases. Now, with this setup, what happens is during low flow periods, only the 8-inch will be functioning to provide protection and the proper pressure reduction that we need. During high flows, the 8-inch and the 16 to 12-inch will be functioning. But with the existing structure here, we had the limited room to insert all of these items in here, so we had to work with a specific supplier to come up with a coupling that will fit in that. When we moved from that to the alternate, I'm sorry, before I finish with that, let me show you what that also necessitated. We had to put the two valves on both sides, so that required us to raise the top of the structure. So the top of the structure now was submerged underground. We had to adjust to keep it dry, and also we had to provide room for the valves to work out some clearance to the valves. So that was one of the cost items that can increase the cost from the original. As you can see here, this whole thing is a brand new construction.
How high are they going to raise that?
2.25 feet.
Okay.
So. By going to the precast vault, we'll end up with this layout over here. This whole thing is brand new precast structure with link seal to provide any water infiltration inside the pit. It will give us enough room for a proper size coupling that's readily available. Again, what we'll do is we'll remove the other pit and we'll drop this in, and we'll provide couplings here and there to just connect to the existing 16-inch on the outside. And this will give us some more room inside. Again, it's of course brand new structure, better installation, better reliability.
Now, the existing pressure reducing valve is 50 years old.
Probably more than that, just about.
And none of the parts have ever been replaced before. And this issue came up because Barry, I know, was very concerned about it over the years. John, today, brought in some recordings, and they have to do with the stability of the pressure coming from Detroit now, and he can explain that.
Mm-hmm. We have a chart recorder at the north end right off the toll bridge, and we change that chart each week, 7-day chart. And for about the past year, the pressures coming from Detroit have stabilized. You'll see about a 10-pound differential between day and night.
Can you show the chart? Will it pick it up on the screen? All right, it does pick it up. Well, you can pick it up. You see the red line around? Everybody?
Mm-hmm.
That shows that there's not a lack of
pressure spikes.
Spikes, so-called spikes, where the pressure jumps greatly, and that contributes to water main breaks. So basically, what you're saying is there were some little minor spiking, but with what Detroit's done to their system recently,
seems to have stabilized it.
Seems to have stabilized the pressure.
2 or 3 times in the past year, it's exceeded 70 pounds.
So that's good.
Yes.
The pressure reducing valve gives us insurance, added insurance to stabilize the pressure coming to the island, and protects our old water mains, basically. So the question is, should we proceed now with this expenditure, or is it functioning right now then, properly?
Well, there's only one way to find out, and that's have the company calibrate the existing structure, the existing pressure reducing valves.
What's your recommendation, Sahil?
I mean, of course, a new structure is much better than an old one, but again, if the finances are not there, it's not out of the order to go ahead and take a look at the existing, see if they can be recalibrated, like John mentioned, and refurbished, if we can find parts for them. I mean, a couple of years ago, we did the same thing in the city of Riverview. We refurbished the 24-inch valve and a 12-inch valve, and they're functioning great. It was hard finding parts, but we found them. The initial thought was to do the same thing here on Grosse Hill, and it's still an option to do. The only thing is the pit itself is not waterproof, so you're always getting water, and I still recommend waterproofing the pit and putting a sump pump in place to make sure they remain dry so they can get accessed and repaired on a regular basis.
Maybe, so what is the difference in cost between doing a complete replacement and
there is quite a bit of cost difference. Initially, about 3 years ago or 4 years ago, the cost was about $50,000 to just repair the existing and refurbish them without doing any work in the pit. If we are to maintain them now, my guess would be at 10% escalation every year. We'll be looking about $70,000 to $80,000.
So we're looking at $70,000 to refurbish, $241,000 to replace.
Yes. Assuming we can find parts. And again, I don't know what brand the current PRVs are. Do you know? If it's Clow, maybe.
So this stabilized pressure from Detroit is something we didn't have when we started this process. One suggestion I have is, I mean, it raises an issue of comfort in terms of spending that kind of money, obviously. And one thought I have is we could table this tonight and appoint a subcommittee of a few people and ask them to meet with the two of you and whoever else and look at this further. Come back in April with, if you can, with some kind of recommendation. It wouldn't hurt to table it.
Sure.
I'd like Les to be part of that committee. Les, if you would.
Okay.
And would you, Ted, be on that? And Jim, Ron, Jim, anybody else want to?
Sure, I will.
Jim?
Okay.
All right. So the committee will be Jim Budney, Jim Nelson, and Les, and Ted. And you can, Lorinda, you can call the committee together. And I didn't want to. I just wanted to throw this off on you, and you bring the right parties together, see if you can get the parts, and we'll make the right decision. I feel mixed on it. I mean, if we're going to spend $70,000 and end up with something we're going to have to fix a few years from now, I don't like that idea.
I mean, the main goal is to maintain the pressures in a form that you don't swell and deflate the mains so many times that it's like a wire hanger. You just bend them back and forth, they're going to break. So if we can do it by refurbishing these valves, that's fine. They will still require frequent maintenance, but again, that's an option considering how much cost difference there is between this and
would it be all right with you then, in terms of recommendation to appoint this committee? Let you look at it. It gives you plenty of time to come back at 2 months and see what you think then after you evaluate it.
Sure.
And as part of this, we'll be able to find out if replacement parts are even available.
We will be researching that to make sure that we can find replacement. If we can't, we may come back with a replacement cost just for the valves.
Any other discussion on this? I'd entertain a motion to table then and refer it to a subcommittee.
Ted?
Can I have a motion?
Les?
To table. Oh, I'm sorry, you wanted to speak, Ted?
No, I was just helping Lorinda with the names. Go ahead.
All right, what am I doing?
You want a motion?
To table the item to a subcommittee to review and bring it back at our April meeting.
So moved. Second.
Okay. We have a motion to table, bring it back at our April meeting.
Thank you.
A number of people are involved. Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Are you done, Sohail? I think. Are you going to stay for the budget discussion?
I don't have to. If I like to, I can, but...
Is there any reason, Ann or Lorinda?
We'll just hand you a copy and tell you what you got to spend next year.
Ann might be offended.
Next item, thank you for being here tonight. The next item is the budget review. And everybody got a revised copy of the budget because the original one is still a draft, but you have it on your desk when you got here. We're going to let our finance director, Ann Darzniak, walk us through it, and then we'll open it up for questions. What our goal is tonight is, we're just advisory, but I hope we can get to a point where we can assist the staff and make some advisory recommendations on the budget for tonight. Now, I would say that there's a lot of line items here, and most of the line items are either zero change from the prior years, the operating expenditures. So we need to focus on the bigger items. So with that, Ann, you have the floor.
I got it. Yeah, my mic. Hello? Okay. I was actually during Sohail's presentation said that stuff's almost as boring as my stuff, so I'm not sure which one was more boring for me.
Thanks a lot, eh?
No, it's yours, Ann. It's yours.
I know. I'm thinking that. All right. Anyway, what we have before you is the budget you have is that was given to you before. A lot of the numbers are the same. what we did, there was a typo and there was some calculations as far as revenue and stuff. So the one that she gave you today is numbered, and that one's going to be a more accurate draft budget as of this point. If you take your, I hope she didn't staple them, because actually there's a lot of pieces and we're going to be moving around. So
you can refer to page numbers.
What I want you to do, or which is extremely helpful, is I provided on pages 18 through 22 is the last 5 years of actual history for the sewer fund as well as the water fund. These become very helpful if you go to build your budget. You can see where the numbers have been and a lot of the reason of why the numbers are the same as they are in previous years if you look at that. Again, that is very helpful. So I think what we'll do, like Bill Kostick said, is that we're going to work with the big numbers, the big changes in numbers. A lot of the things you'll see are the same from year after year, but they're the more little, just the little numbers. So let's start with page 3. We're going to look at revenues on the water side. As we know, the DPW fund is made up of water revenue, sewer revenue, and refuse revenue, and we keep all those separate for the different operations in each portion of the bill. So if we look at the first page, we're going to look at how the water revenue is derived. Obvious, it's derived from the service charges, which is based on a fixed fee per meter size, and that number pretty much stays consistent from year to year because it is a fixed charge. What we want to talk about is the metered sales. This number, if you look on page 1, what we did, if we look at our current budget to date, our sewer usage or water usage is actually gone down like 13%. So as I started working on the budget, I realized that the water went down usage was because of the extremely wet season we had last year. So the number of gallons, if we look on my first page for 2013, from January to December, was 275 million gallons of water. If you look over the past couple of years, it's extremely low. And again, it's because of that wet summer season. So as I started creating the budget, usually I use the year before. And if I did that, my water revenue was extremely low. So anything we did as far as rates in the last couple of years was basically wiped out because the usage was so low. So what I did is went to the Weather Almanac, and I found out for Grosio Township that what they predict for the summer of 2014 is to be spring was going to be a little wetter, but the summer months were supposed to be on a normal basis, maybe a little bit drier, warmer on a normal basis. So what I decided to do and felt it would have been reasonable is to actually take an average of the last 4 years to come up what my revenue stream would be. Obviously, it's a prediction, and so analytically felt that was a good number. So obviously that number derives the rates. So currently in the budget I'm showing you, I do not have a rate increase, and we'll go back to the first page and I'll explain that to you, but we just want to go through what the budget consists of and where we're at. So that's pretty much, obviously, how the revenues are derived as far as usage.
And I guess if we have a burning question, and so the metered sales is what you're talking about.
Yes.
If we go to page 3, the metered sales for this year,
I used
there's 2 million too. Is that the budget figure or the actual?
That is what with the current rate of water of 8.09 times the 305 is what I used to create that number right now. So assuming the rate is the same, as you can see, I have no increase in there because we're going to discuss that later, but just saying if we use what my projected usage would be, the 305 times the 809, which is our current rate. That gives you that.
I'm not talking about the rate, I'm talking about the volume.
Right, the
total
305.
revenues.
That's how I based it on my front page for the last 4 years. I used a 305.
Yeah, the volume is 305. The amounts on page 3 are dollar amounts.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. It's based on the 305 times the current rate of 809 per 1,000 gallons of water.
As I look at this, the figure that shows up for under 2013-14 is $2,259,000.
200.
I'm on page 3.
Right.
For metered sales, the current year's budget's $2,259,000, and you're saying
That's correct, plus the 273. So that number from last year right now is about 12. It's running. That's the 13-14 budget. The 14-15 is what's being projected is the 2.4 right now.
Right.
Right.
So what
I'm about the same as what I am.
All I'm asking is the $2,259,000, is that a budgeted number or is that an actual
Those were
estimate?
last year's budgeted.
So we're budgeting more than last year.
We're budgeting about the same because you got to add the 273.
That's with your rate increase, or this is already, what?
This is with, if you take those two line items last year.
Oh, we did the rate increase last year, which raised it 273.
Right, so that's in total.
Right.
So we're about at that same
All right.
level. I think, so we're going to start with that.
Okay.
I just want to give you guys a starting point. So we're going to start with the 809 at the 305 level.
Okay.
Everyone get that? Okay.
Yep.
Next, we're going to go to the sewer.
Page
4. So again, we're going to, the service charge is that stable charge per line. We know that. And then the metered sales, again, is derived the same way based on the 312 at the 305 level. So we're deriving that at that current time. That's the way we're deriving the rates. So the sewer rates that are derived are for all operations within the sewer portion of the DPW, as well as all operations for the wastewater treatment plant. So is everyone comfortable with that, the 953 figure? Again, current rates based on the estimated 305 usage.
Okay. Why isn't the 578 in that last line shown in the total line?
That right now, that is going to be our plug to make it balance. And we're going to go back to the first page to show where we're at and what we need to do rates to make it balance and not go into fund balance.
Okay.
Okay, so that year, last year, that number is what we used to balance, to go into prior year fund balance because the rates weren't raised enough to cover our expenditures.
Last year. Right.
So that I understand this, I'm moving up a couple lines in rate increase. This is the one we've already talked about, the rate increase we put in last year?
Right.
So how come that is not included in the total line? Since this rate increase has already taken place, correct?
Not for the current budget year.
Oh, okay.
Right, that's what you guys are going to decide based on the budget presented.
No, council's going to.
So just remind me.
So the 578, last year rates were not raised enough to balance this budget, so that was coming out of prior year resources, whether it be for the treatment plant or operations itself.
How much came out of the fund balance?
We had about 578, but if you look at your budget now, we're probably not going to go into it by that much because a big portion of that was the $500,000 we put aside for the ACO. We haven't spent all that, so we won't go into fund balance that much.
So really only 78,000 of the 578 is actually dipped into from fund balance. And the other's a cushion that's out there right now.
Right, and you're going to
ACO.
and you're going to see that again in this budget.
Okay.
Yeah. The recycling charges obviously are based on the pickups and what we did over the last couple of years. If we remember, we actually adjusted the refuse rates so that the cost equals the revenue equals the cost.
You're on page 5?
Yes, I'm
Thank
on
you.
page 5. Yep.
So, Anna, just a question. So for water and sewer that you've set up for now, there's no rate increase
That's right.
in there?
Right.
So we have to deal with that yet?
Right, yeah, and on the first page, I
Okay.
explain that. Okay, so that's where our revenue's coming from. If we look at the expenses, page 6, now we're talking all water. So what we like to do in these budgets is actually set the water rates to cover all of the water expenses, operations, capital improvement, and bond payments. And we'd like to set, in a real world, we'd like to set the sewer rates to cover the wastewater treatment plant operations, the bond payments. And so that's our real world. So that's why we take these separately, and we want to apply the water rates based on the appropriate expenditure cost centers. So we're going to start with the DPW, the water portion. If we look at the water portion, the big changes were salaries. Obviously, we took the manager's salary out, and we put in adjustments as for Lorinda and John. And we also, I think, at the end of last year, prior to budget, we still had an additional employee in there that has been taken out. So that's really how it affects all the salaries. So basically, lines 703 to 724.
Okay, so that full-time salaries includes Lorinda's?
Yep, and adjustments. So our full-time salaries would be obviously Lorinda, John, Jerry, Donna, and Jan. And those are all the 5 people that are included within salaries. And it's basically a 70-30 split between water and sewer.
So you're showing here that the expenses are going down by $107,000.
Basically, with the loss of 2 people.
Thank you.
And so that means in the field we only have 2 people?
Correct.
Okay.
The other one, for this line item.
And on the salaries, does that, even though it's gone down because of losing people, have the salaries gone up?
The salaries have went up for the adjustments for Lorinda and John right now, and there is a 2%, well, not for 2% administrative. Union contract has been settled. There is no union increase, and currently within that is just the manager, which would be a 2% for Lorinda, just across the board. So, but their adjustments are in there.
So her wage is increased by 2%.
Correct. Right.
And it's shown here.
Yes.
You know, Jim, I think that as far as our commission with advisory, our biggest concern isn't necessarily the pay, because we are advisory. I think we have to focus on capital.
No, you're right. You're right.
I'm
just thinking ahead.
But I'm concerned for the future. And I'll say this, I don't think I don't know how much more we're going to grow as a community, but we used to have 6 people in the field operations. I think that maybe not this coming year, but we're going to have to readdress that field staffing. That's my opinion, whether we add another person or something next year or whatever, but we'll deal with this year. I think we're short, so I'm okay with this for now. I am. Next page, 7?
Yep, next one's 7. If we go to line 927, obviously it's the water. Our water increase from the city of Detroit is 11.3%. So I just took last year's number and added 11.3% to it. So that increased by $125,000.
Is that the 305 million assumption? Or last year's 270?
It's based on the calculation that we get. Now we have a fixed portion from the city of Detroit as well as a variable portion, and that's what they're estimating our cost will go up.
It'll go up 11.3%?
Yes.
Now, that was published in the newspaper maybe 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And the one thing that stood out when I looked at it was sort of a roller coaster, because they didn't seem to have any distance established rates, and we've always heard about that. We're so far away that it costs us more. But then you look farther south, of us, maybe they were treated a little bit better, and farther north, maybe they were really treated well or
It's not
treated
a-
even
yeah,
worse.
it's not
And
off that factor.
It's not an exact science.
It's based on peak flow, peak demand.
Yeah,
And it
It's a
also
lot
the
of
fact
things.
we're not on contract.
that's right. Right.
That's a big, I mean, that has
That's
a
a
lot
big
to
item.
play in
Yep.
it. We're just.
Every
giving-
year, they would provide us with an exact sheet of how to compare it, and they should, because we're not in contract. I'm like, where's my sheet? They go, you're not getting one.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Oh, wow.
oh, well,
You
that's
just,
nice.
you just get the increase.
That's right.
And going back to 927, just for a second.
Yep.
So this increase of 125,000 is based on an assumed rate of consumption.
Yeah,
What is
if I
that
looked at-
assumed rate of consumption? 305 you've been talking
No, it
about?
was how, but he converted it to a different amount of gallon. If I looked at last year's, the 1.1 million, we're right there. If you look at the budget, we're budget to actual is within $40,000. So they based the 1,100 on units, and then he gave me a calculation, and
So
based
he
it on
gave you
that.
this figure.
So Ohio did. He said
Okay.
11.3%. Yes.
So, yeah, I know what Ron's
Right,
saying.
based on
We're doing rates,
Right.
looking at revenue based on this 305, but then our expense doesn't tie to that.
Right.
Good.
And just along the 11.3% increase, we know the city's in a bankruptcy situation. They go in different directions on how to handle the water system in Detroit, because that's really a plum that can be dealt with in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
So it would seem to me that right now, based on what was published, the 11.3 number is the number that you have to use. But it's really an educated guess, because we don't know how that water board is going to be treated, or whether or not those rates are going to stick on that number. So we really don't have a choice but to use 11.3.
Right, and I would have looked into it, but like I said, our
Well, you can't.
1.1 million,
I
we're
don't
right
think there's
on.
any way.
Yeah, no, and we're right on.
Okay.
So that's how I based that.
Making money, it's not us.
Currently, the main repair, we increased about $50,000. Is this more main breaks than normal? When they were talking about main breaks, is the 26 normal, or is it exceeds normal, or?
Last year, we had about the same the year before.
Okay, so
But
that
we
is
already
consistent.
had 9
Okay.
this year.
Right, okay. So as we're talking with Lorenda, I did looked back at what we spent for Compo and Pro to do the water main breaks over the last year, and it was about $100,000. So that number's a guess too. So we're probably being a little bit on the conservative side there by putting 200 in. But like she said, she's already had 9 in the first month of business. So that, like I said, that's a guess too, but I'd rather be conservative than not.
And do we have could you go back to 2013 and see how many we had in January 2013? Break the 26 down in each month? Just,
I can do that, but I didn't.
or is it worth doing that, is my guess.
Jim, I don't think it would be, because you got an unusual winter this year.
Yeah.
Now, Les would know better than any of us up here, but it's really a screwy winter. Some mild winter would be different numbers, could be.
Yeah, it's just hard to.
Well, and of course, that figure used to be a lot lower when we had staff. So everybody's got to keep in mind that maintenance, the main repair, we're contracting it all out now, and with some help from our staff, but we used to do it all by ourselves, except for unusual circumstances. So you could say, well, there could be a couple people in there if we were to do it ourselves again. Okay?
The one thing about this budget, it is our largest budget, and it's probably the worst to predict, because it's just, if you look at history, it's all, I mean, some numbers are predictable, but other ones are just all over the board, just depends on conditions.
Right. I have a question, Ann, on the transportation, 860 line item. What is that? Why'd that go up? Is that just for vehicles expense?
Yeah, she was saying there was more vehicle
the trucks?
maintenance and older trucks, yep.
Do we pay an equipment rental charge to any
No.
fund? Okay,
It's
we don't
all-
have a motor.
Well, they're all purchased, yep.
So what does that represent? Gasoline or repairs on the vehicles or what?
I think it was repairs, right?
It was repairs, yeah.
Yeah. We have a list of vehicles. I think how many vehicles do we have? 7? Or?
That includes all our backhoe and that kind of stuff. Okay. All right. Then you've listed the water main bonds.
Yep. So the one right here, obviously of the DPW bond, that was for the building, and that's going to mature in 2018. And then you got the 4 water main segments that will mature in 2018, 19, 25, and 26.
So those are included in our budget.
Yep. Any questions there?
Yep.
Page 8. Again, a lot of this is derived from the project. And here, as Ohio had spoken, there is the PRV pressure valve we put 280 in. Once you put all the engineering, contract, and permits and everything that's needed, we estimated the project, his cost, the cost came in at 240, but there would be engineering and permits. So we put 280 in the budget, based on the recommendation from Ohio. And then the only other capital project would be a pickup with a plow. The concern with all the snow that we probably need some equipment to take care of it.
All right,
so that's proposed as well.
That raises a concern in my mind. How can we need the truck. We need the truck, right, for the water department? You had a truck in this year's budget. Utility truck.
Oh.
We didn't buy it. What's going to happen to that money?
It just goes in the fund balance. Anything we
It'll
did.
go back to fund balance.
Yeah.
All right.
At the end of the day.
I don't know how you can justify in the water fund showing the plow, but some part of the road fund has got to pay for the truck if it's going to be used for the roads too.
Mm-hmm.
So you're probably going to split a truck between water, sewer, and roads.
Right, and the airport was even thinking they could take on some.
Justify some drain money for that. But we're going to get to that discussion, but I wanted to raise the issue now because I think we need to buy a good truck with a plow on it for the township to be able to use next winter.
Mm-hmm.
We need to replace a vehicle. The one you're using is how old?
11 years.
11 years old. Okay. So we'll talk about that, I guess, as an item. Okay.
Okay, so that pretty much takes care of all the water expenses. Okay, next we're going to go to the sewer on page 9. These are just the sewer operations budget. Doesn't include the wastewater treatment plant. We'll talk about that next. So if we look on page 9, again, there is really nothing that stands out. If anyone's got any questions, again, salaries is reduced along with benefits because it's a 70-30 split. So that's where that's coming from. We want to go to page 10. Okay, we want to look at that, the maintenance main repair. Again,
what number?
On line 932 on page 10.
Mm-hmm.
That's at $500,000 right now, currently what we have in the budget to meet the ACO. So it's currently shown, and we'll discuss later how that affects the rates, and maybe decide if that's a good number or where we want to put that number. But wanted to include it. Again, the only other thing there is the water mains, sewer mains that are paid for. Again, expiring in 2026, 2019, and 2032. We go to line item on page 10, which is the 999. Basically, that's the portion of the rates that covers the wastewater treatment plant. And then we can go to that and discuss the wastewater treatment plant expenditures where we get that number. And that's on page 14.
And just real quickly on the bond payments, why did they go up?
Oh, just based on the amortization schedule. Every year it just changes.
It changes.
Yeah. Some years are low, some are more. Just happen to be where they boost up the principal. Okay. And that's what made the difference. They try to, when they do a bond, they try to stabilize it out. So it doesn't fluctuate all that much, but you'll get some fluctuation. And
Yeah, on page 19, or 14, the obvious one that stands out is 970. Why did this go down so much, $113,000 decrease?
Where are you at?
On page 14,
Okay.
line item 970.
Okay. On, just based on capital projects, so if you look at last year, do you have last year's budget? It's totally based on capital projects. We can go over those capital projects.
So in other words, our capital projects for the wastewater treatment plant have gone down significantly for this year.
For the current year,
Thank
what
you.
was budget, yep. Yeah, that's one of the big ones. So if you guys want to know about any of the, and that really derives the wastewater treatment plant. If you put in major expenses, obviously it's going to create big rate increases if you don't do a lot in any one year.
So we got a lot done
Keep
this
it
last
stabilized.
year.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And then Lorinda or can discuss if there's anything that you have questions about as far as the capital outlay.
Okay.
Anyone got any questions about that?
Nope.
Okay. All right, and the next one is the refuse.
And did you need the $500,000?
Right now, and then we'll discuss how it affects rates on the first page. I just wanted to put it in there right off the bat,
All right.
just so we can talk about it.
Where do you list the fines that were being assessed?
Oh, okay.
I think we paid a $10,000 fine this year. And we'll probably pay a $10,000 fine next year and
Yeah, I don't, what did we
keep
put
paying
there?
it until we hire an attorney for $20,000.
I have it on the legal fees and the fines. Oh, legal fees and fines. I was going to change the fines.
Yeah, it's just shown as legal fees,
Yep,
I think.
I need to put that in there, yep. Okay.
You're adjusting it to what?
On page 6.
It's going to
on the
say
water
legal
side.
fees and fines.
And we put $70,000 in there.
And page 6?
Yep, we're back to page 6, sorry.
And why you just don't have a separate account for fines or something?
We
to
can
call
definitely
it
make
legal
one.
fees?
Shouldn't it be in sewer, the fines?
I would think these are sewer charges, not water charges.
Oh, okay. Okay, we did not.
And you currently have like 2,250 or?
Where are you guys at? The original one on the first page was anything we had, fines that we'd foresee on the water part.
Why would we have
our-
fines on a water park? What are they fining us for?
The MIOSHA fines. MIOSHA fines that we haven't paid yet, that's what that number is.
And that's at page
Potential MIOSHA
6?
fines
Is that
is
page
on page 6.
6 is
Yes.
26?
Yes.
Could you give me the breakdown on that? That's 70,000?
It's 59 for the fine.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then 10
the
for-
balance.
All right, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what that was. As far as the sewer, I don't think we budgeted anywhere. I don't know where Lorinda usually puts
Well,
it.
you're going to need to at least need to factor in what we paid this year because it's going to happen again next year.
Okay.
If we have any bypasses, they're going to fine us.
Okay.
So that would be in line item 826, legal fees and fines. And you're going to have to come up with a figure there.
On water.
On page 9, Ann.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Well, I think we can pretty much factor whatever we chose to pay this time.
Okay.
And I think we just paid what they asked. I don't remember what the number was.
I think it was 10.
I think it was $10,000.
Okay, so,
But we're going to, if we have one bypass, they're going to hit us again. So.
okay, so we'll put, some in the 591. Yeah.
You know, just a thought, I misspoke. Why don't we put that under the wastewater treatment plant?
The rates still pay for the rates. I mean, we can.
Well, you have a reserve there.
Okay.
I know you can't use it for that, though, but...
It looks better.
Wherever you guys like it.
All right.
So
You're right. Leave it there.
I can change my 500 to 490.
Well, that's an option. Seriously.
Yeah.
Is that an option, Ted? Change the 500 to 490, 480?
I need to keep it under there.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, you can change it
Or we can
anything
list
you
it
want.
under there, or we can
I
list
mean,
it to find.
traditionally, we haven't, I'm not even sure
Right.
that discussion hasn't taken place yet as to whether we're even going to leave it there, depending on what the effect of that is on the rates
Right.
that we're going to go forward with.
Right.
And I think that discussion needs to happen here.
Yeah.
Right, yep, we're
All
almost
right,
there.
well, don't lose track of that fine issue.
I got
I'm
it.
not trying to hurry you, Ann, but
Nope, I know.
Hurry
We're
up, will
almost
you?
there. 'Cause hurry.
Yeah, there you go. What page are we on? 15?
You guys are really confusing. I'm boring. I'm more boring than Sohio. I get it. You didn't kick him out. Okay, refuse. So we're going to look at the refuse side.
What page number?
Revenue is on, so we make this pretty much revenue neutral. So it's page 5. Our revenues are $788,000, and on pages 11 and 12, our revenues are the same. So what we did is, as far as collections, the biggest one is obviously, what am I looking at? Our contract. I'm on the wrong page. Oh, if we look at the bottom for the page 810, I'm sorry, 810, 815, those are the pickups. And they look a little different because they're billing us different. So we tried to, the refuse and collection were the same as in one rate, but in total they're about the same. We raised it to 3%, whatever the contract was.
So in other words, refuse went up 159, but between the recycling
Right.
and yard waste, they
Right.
went down 152.
Yep.
I get it. Everybody see that?
Yep.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it's just the way we classify. And then the only thing I'm going to bring to your attention is basically the rates equal themselves, so we do have some reserve for the future use.
Okay.
So if that, and again, if that number gets too big, we want to pull those rates down, but we're watching it to make sure it's pretty close. So there's like a $70,000 flexibility. We'll watch it. And maybe next year, if we collect again too much, we'll lower the rates or not collect for 2 months or whatever. So definitely not there to make money on the refuse. Okay. Well, where did Ted go? Now I'm getting to the good part, and he walked out on me. All right.
So does that mean Ted was more boring than you?
All right. So what now? So we started with, we did that rate, that 809 of water, and if we look
Where
on-
are you?
We're back to
Where
page
are
1.
you?
I'm going to try to explain page 1 now.
Wait, Ann, we haven't gone through all the, I would like to go through all the expenditures first, before we get to the water sewer rate.
Oh, I thought we did.
Well, I don't,
Do you go through
I
the
don't think we
treatment
did.
plant?
We looked at the treatment plant. Oh, and he said, asked if there was any, the treatment plant, we raised the contract of Earth Tech for the cost of inflation. So that was went from 380 to 390. And as far as the plant, what derives most of that is those capital projects. So if there are any questions on the capital projects, we can go to each one, or if you guys have any questions.
You mean for the sewage plant?
Yeah, on page 14, yep.
Why did the natural gas go down?
Actually, I entered into a natural gas contract with a distributor, and actually our gas across the board has gone down because we did that, instead of going directly through DTE. So
Cool.
That was good. Yeah, so that was cool.
So now we're on page 1.
Back to page 1.
No.
No.
I thought we just went through.
No.
Wastewater treatment plant, there's no change.
Well, there's still pages through
take a
17 I want to go through.
Those are roads and stuff, though. We're going to.
Well, where's the drain
places.
budget? There's no drain budget here, right?
Yeah.
It's 17.
Yeah, it's on page 17.
17, but let's get through the DPW and focus on, get that out of the way.
All right, I want to,
Things.
let's just quickly get rid of the roads and
Oh,
drains.
okay. All right.
Page 15 is roads. You show 642.
642. If you look on page 16, I have on the bottom, what we do is we add the revenue for this current year, which we must have missed a page. I think I'm missing a page. So what it does is if we had talked about, and you guys had discussed it before, for the expenditures, we have the dust control, which is 40 grand. We have concrete slab of 40 grand. We have the snow plowing, which is 40. And if we base it, last year, our expense was about 23,000. If we're going to base next year's based on this year, that 40 should realistically probably be 60, because they're going to charge us based on this year, and that's for the priority services. So
that 40 is the priority.
That's correct.
Yeah, and it's
probably low.
Got to be high next year.
Right.
Well, so on page 15 you show 642.
Right.
I thought if we're raising about what a year, 240,000.
Right. So my leftover is about if you look in the reserve for future maintenance.
Where am I going to see that?
On page 16 of $213,000. So it's basic. There is a page missing, but it's just going to tell you the revenue, which is about 222 or something.
In my head, I didn't have we had that kind of money, but let's talk about what we want to spend, and we'll have to balance that out.
Right, and that's going to be the
4 miles of chip seals, 240. LaSalle Court's 40.
Right.
Reserve for future annual maintenance.
That's basically your fund balance. If you take all your...
Now, that's money you just collected, or is it next December's money?
It would be what was left over at what's estimated at March 31st, 2000, this year, plus the next year's collection. If you took all your expenses, that would be left over.
So we have spent, if it's only 213, we have then spent almost the fund balance right now. So the question I'm throwing back at you is, how do we get to 642? If you understand my logic.
It'll be what's coming over and the collection.
Okay.
Yeah, you said it included the collection. Now you're saying the collection isn't there yet.
It would be what's carrying over as of March 31st.
Which is
2013 or 14?
2000. The collection
the
we just did
13-14
is already estimated to be in there, plus the one you'll get in 15 or 14.
Huh?
And I guess you just have to come back with it.
Yeah, with that page missing, it's hard to...
It's hard to...
You don't have one either?
Okay.
You know, we show cash in the bank in the treasurer's report after we did all the work this year. Of 54,000, well, 154,000 is what we show.
So I'm guessing...
We have 154,000, and then the 2013 collection we just made. So you got that's shown at 222.
222.
And 154, and then another 222, right?
What's your cash today? What was your cash on the treasurer's report? It's going to be pretty darn close with that. I usually take money off to make it to March 31st. That is your fund. That's your carryover plus your 222.
So it shows 378 plus 222.
So let me see your cash.
So it's 600,000.
Yeah.
Well, you got to look at that figure. Okay. But at any rate, my biggest concern is that we have cash available to spend this summer. Is one of my concerns, and I think we will have. I just want to throw a couple things out on roads. First of all, we have to show some money in here. You're probably going to have to go back. I mean, the truck, I think we have to deal with the snowplow issue a little bit.
Okay.
And we should really buy the plow itself or part of the truck out of this budget, some of it. I think you could justify some out of drainage, because if you don't have the pushback, particularly on curb streets, you're not going to have drainage, right? Some of the intersection work to catch basins as well. So I think you could pull the truck and the plow from 4 sources. That's what I think. And you're the treasurer, Ted, so jump in on here anytime. So I would like to show a truck, and hope tonight we can get approval to put a truck in the budget. That's my thought on it. And
What were your four sources, Bill? Four sources, you said?
Well, you could buy it, we need a new truck for water and sewer.
No, okay, but what are your sources?
The road fund ought to
Okay.
contribute to it, and the drain fund ought to contribute.
Okay.
So you could
That's
spread
two.
that cost a little bit when you redo the budget, it seemed to me. And I don't know what you're talking. What are you talking, 3-yard dump, 5-yard dump? What do you need to push, huh?
5-yard.
A 5-yard dump with a plow. And I know you have some ideas, Ted, on maybe trying to get some, we'll study that as we approach buying a vehicle, trying to go through the government program. But I still think we should budget it and be determined that by next winter, we're going to have a truck available to help our residents when we get this kind of snow. Anybody else want to speak on that?
No, what do we have right now? Just the one truck?
We have F-350, which is on its last leg. The plow is shot as of today. And we have two 250s in the water department.
So what's a 250? What's the rating on it? What's it, 1 ton or what?
3/4.
It's a 3/4 ton pickup. If you get a wet snow, you can't move snow on a road with it.
Not over 6 inches.
You need
Yeah.
a 5-yard dump
Yeah.
to move snow with a blade and plow a lane if it's a heavy snow. So we don't have the equipment to do a good job.
Correct. If we start early and keep up with it, we're good. If you get it 6 inches all at once, you'll never do it.
Well, I think we need to meet with the county. I called Brownstown, Canton, and Huron Township. None of them pay the county for supplemental work like we do.
Hello, and thank you for tuning in to Downriver Rescue Connection. I'm your host, Patty Radikovich, and it is my pleasure to bring you information on animal-related topics and the animal rescue community. On today's episode, we have a very special guest that I'm really excited about. On the show, we have a wildlife rehabilitator just in time for the spring so that you know what to do when you find those little wild baby.
But some of our streets were almost impassable. And the police chief and fire chief came to Lorinda and John and the township manager this year and said, we need to plow. So you went out and plowed, and we hired Compo to do some plowing just to open up the roads so people can have a lane to get out of. I don't know if everybody's aware of that. Mm-hmm. So that's a concern I have. Yeah. So anyway.
People were actually pleasantly surprised that that happened. 3 or 4 people said, where did this come from?
Well, you had some compliments on it, I think. Well, at any rate, I just wanted you to know what my thinking was. So as far as roads, and another thing for the future, you know, I was in Farmington Hills. We only had a few miles. We were down to 5 miles of gravel roads when I left. We had 95 miles when I went there. But we assessed dust control. Now that's a whole new sticky wicket because nobody's ever been assessed that before. So, you know, that's a concern. But we have to figure out how we're going to stretch our dollars and give the people the most service. So at any rate, we're not going to talk about that this year, but just throwing ideas out.
I thought we already had money in the budget to buy a new truck and plow. Wasn't that already shown in here? Are you talking about additional?
No. They did show that in the water and sewer budgets. What I'm saying, Ron, it should be spread over 4 budgets.
Okay. Oh, that's your only issue then. I thought you were lobbying for getting additional.
My issue is twofold. We ought to do it. I mean, budget it and then get the truck bought this spring, summer. Make a decision, move forward with it.
Okay.
Because we had a panel truck in there for the water department and we never did anything with it.
Are you guys looking at 1 truck or 2? I mean, that's... I don't, because everyone was talking 2 before. 1 good one and 1 just not.
Well, no, we need to take one. You got 3 trucks now. I mean, 1 truck, brand new truck would help you, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I think the other thing you want to look at on that, you have to look at number one, the snow. This has been a terrible winter, but you also have to look at what point do you? I mean, if you get a number of trucks, now are you going to go out every snowfall and do it?
No,
that has to be looked at.
Certainly.
But I think with what we have, we should be getting one truck.
I know for a fact most of the big cities like Livonia and Farmington Hills and so forth, Southfield, they don't go on the local streets until they get at least 4 inches built up. We could even stretch that to 6 inches. But once you start getting 8 inches, 10 inches built up on the road, people are having difficulty.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
So it still doesn't make any difference in what we're talking about. One new truck.
We're
right?
talking
Just
one
no matter
truck.
where we're paying for it from, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Well, I got a question.
Yes.
The truck that we're going to replace in our budget, what truck is that?
It would be an additional, they want to rebuild the F-350 that's currently in place.
Well, that F-350 is really not our truck.
Correct.
That's the township truck.
They're all aware of that. Those funds would come from township to rebuild that.
What do you mean it's a township truck?
It was not paid for out of our funds. It was paid for by the township. That's township truck.
I don't understand. We are the township.
We are the township, but the trucks that we purchased in our department were purchased out of ratepayers' money. That dump truck and another pickup truck was purchased by the township.
Taxpayers' money.
Taxpayers' money out of some other place.
General fund.
We kept it in our garage, and when we had the maintenance man, Frank Sushin, those were his trucks. That's what he used. Then they came up with the idea to start salting everything. Well, then the F-350 dump truck was the one that started salting the parking lots here and all the parking lots that the township has. And that's when they got the plows on our trucks, and we start doing that. Now, the next question I have is this. Since we're out here plowing all of this stuff all over Groseal, are these guys being paid out of the ratepayers' money, or is it coming out of somebody else's money?
Well,
this question is, when I used
out of water or sewer or
roads.
They should be reimbursing our department for the work that they're doing.
They are. We're taking it out of roads. I mean, that's what a road millage is for. Is
Okay.
Yeah.
Because when I plowed the bike path, I kept track of that money, and whenever my time was utilized on that bike path, the bike path maintenance fund paid the DPW back. And I'll tell you, I have never seen, looking in all these things, where any of that money ever came back to us.
It has. I haven't, for this year, I haven't allocated it, but for the current year, we always have in the past. Right now, their payroll is actually charged to that payroll in that department. It's not being charged here, but because of all the snow, they are doing work orders, and we will reclassify it. And just wanted to get them all together and do it at one time. But no, it's always been paid back, or the timesheets reflect where it's charged, and it's charged appropriately.
So, Ann, I'd like to ask that you redo the road budget, reflect a fourth of the truck or something of that sort.
Yep.
That's my proposal to everybody.
Good.
Okay. And include in it some money for the time that people would use to go out and plow, which means that time would come off the water and sewer budgets.
Right.
Does that seem to work? Ted, do you have a problem with that? Ted, do you have a problem with that? I'm trying to make the road budget reflect what it ought to be doing. That's all I'm trying to do.
I'd have to think about that.
All right, well, we're here tonight. It's the only shot we're going to have at the budget.
Well, go ahead. I mean,
I'd like to recommend that you look at
I
that.
don't vote anyway, so go ahead.
Well, no, but you're here. You're the treasurer. Well, that's my thinking on it anyway.
I mean, the DPW salaries have always been charged to the right department for where they're working for. Our DPW department obviously does DPW work. We understand that that's what those other special millages are for. And there is maintenance for bike paths, so that's where they were charged. And the roads, no.
All right, so we're going to have to knock these things off one at a time. Is there a consensus then that would handle the road thing that way?
Sure.
There's a general consensus, okay. That's what you're going to get out of us tonight.
Okay.
All right. And then the drain fund, it's really no big deal as I look at it. We've got all these drain expenses here, and the big item was over $700,000, not budgeted anywhere.
That's correct.
And the other money is really for unknown projects at this point, too, so we really have an open checkbook there to help with drainage problems.
Right.
Everybody agree with that? All right. Now we'll move on to...
Okay. So back to page 1. As you can see from the budget presented, everything was in there. Nothing was taken out. Everything was conservatively put in there. Whatever everyone's wish list or project list or whatever that we thought of, that's what was put in the budget before you. So if we look at the top of page 1, our current water rate, when I gave you that budget, if you look on page 2, the water expenses were $3.13 million, a little over $3 million. My water revenue generated $2.8 million. My shortage was $321,000. Does everyone see that? So if
I don't see the 300.
I see 261.
321
Right
on the second
underneath.
line. Yep.
Here, on page 2.
Yeah.
Okay. 320.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were in the difference column.
Yeah,
Okay.
that revenue.
Okay, that was the difference from last year. Okay. So does everyone understand? So our expenditures are now having to generate where our revenue should be. So if I say if we do not produce a rate increase, that would generate $2.8 million. Our shortage is $321,000. So if we go back to page 1, that's what I'm showing. And a current rate of 809 per 1,000 gallons generates revenue with a shortage of 321,757. Does everyone see how I derive that number?
So the retained earnings is really shortage.
Would have to go into retained earnings, correct?
And how do you not show that there's nothing in the difference column for that 321 on page 2?
All that difference was 13 to 14, 14 to 15. That's just prior to last year. So what?
Right, you had nothing in 13. You have it going up to 321, and yet in the difference column there isn't anything.
Oh, because those were 13, 14 actuals. Those are nothing to do with, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem to...
Okay, that's just that was, my point now is forget 13, 14, forget how that works.
For that line item...
Yes.
Right. Okay.
It may not go across, but
okay.
Like I said. So 321 is my shortage. So on the next line item where I say budget scenarios, in my perfect world, to make this budget balance, to raise another $321,000, my rate would have to go from $8.09 to $9.15.
What percentage increase is that?
13.
13% rate increase for water.
Correct.
Okay, now, and that covers the cost of the water that we purchase from the city of Detroit, which have already increased 11.4. So that's rolled into that amount of a rate increase.
Yeah, covers everything that we talked about in that budget.
Okay, which includes the increased cost that we have to pay the city of Detroit for our water.
Correct.
So in ways that I can understand, my last water bill, which was $805, would now be roughly $900.
For the water portion. We're going to talk about the sewer portion.
Oh, okay. No, that was the total bill.
Right. Okay, so that's what I'm saying in my... So then I looked at different scenarios. Obviously, the big ticket item within that budget was that release valve.
You mean the pressure reducing valve?
Pressure reducing valve. So that was at $280,000. So that included in the above in itself is 92 cents. So the 809 from the 915.
If you
took that out,
reduce the cost of the 241 down to 70, you'd effectively reduce it by like almost 2/3 or 60% or something. Okay.
That's why I wanted to bring that's the simplicity of it. That it's
Sure.
Does everyone get that? Okay. I know it's been thrown around that we need to maybe do a water main, West River, East River. I just wanted to bring to your attention when you talk about a water main and the bond payments. I just did some examples that I threw out. If we did a 1.5 bond issue, $1.5 million over 20 years, that would raise your number an additional 36 cents. The second line, it was obviously a typo. It should have been $3 million. It would raise it 72 cents.
Okay. Oh, that's good information then.
You're talking about units per unit.
Per 1,000 gallons, 36 cents per 1,000 gallons.
All right.
Now, also, I want to make sure Ron Wilder understands this. Ron, when you said your bill would go up 10%.
Right, that did not, that
There's
includes
the
sewer. So.
Well, there's the fixed part of it, too.
Okay.
There's the fixed part of the water. The water has two components.
Right.
So it wouldn't go up that amount.
Gotcha.
Right.
It would go up more.
Right.
More?
Yeah, we got to put the sewer on it.
Sewer and water increase.
But the 13% was only on the water portion, not on the sewer portion.
That's correct.
Not on the fixed portion.
Correct.
Right.
So it wouldn't go up 13% of the whole entire bill, including those. It would go up a smaller percentage because
some of it is fixed charges, right?
My $805 was not for
Per
water
unit.
use only.
It'd be 13% per unit. Is that correct?
Per 1,000 gallons?
Per 1,000 gallons.
Per usage.
Of the water usage portion of the bill.
That's correct.
Correct.
And now she's going to go into the sewer portion.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And you know what? We can actually, I can actually do sample bills and email them all to you. Like, this is what it would be and this is what it would be.
You know, it's not so important just for me. I'm just trying to understand.
It is very complex.
It's substantial.
Yeah.
It's substantial.
Right.
Well, and besides, you're going to do the budget, but we're going to be dealing with the rate increase where we'll get all that detail
right
a few months from now.
Right. So going through the same scenario, if we look our sewer operation expense as well as the water treatment expenses is a little over $2 million. If we look on the other side of that, my shortage was $483,000. So again, we go to the sewer portion of this. That's our current rate. I show our shortage of 483. To complete this balanced budget as presented, I would have to raise my rate from 312 to 470, and that's going to be a bigger increase.
That's a lot more than 13%.
You're right. See, but it's a smaller number. 158. Yeah, it's one. I did 50%, but it is 158. Yeah, divided by 3.12. It is. It's 50%.
Cool.
Of a smaller number. But so again, that included in that number is the main repair to meet the ACO, which is the $500,000 totally included in this budget. If the commission decides to make that $250,000, you can take off 82 cents per 1,000 gallons.
Well, wait a minute. If you take off, $250,000.
Yeah.
If we remove it all?
All would be 164 cents. $1.64. It's long. It's been a long day. $1.64.
I guess I've been looking at this and banging my head against the wall on it for a couple of weeks now. But the reality is that we have now done our studies. We know what the problem is. We don't know what the fix is going to be yet. So, and we know we're not going to be able to fix this through rates. We're going to, and if we do fix it through rates, it will probably be, at some point down the road, we're going to go from a low-interest loan from the government or whatever. However we decide that we're going to address this, we now know what the problem is. We know where our inflow is coming from. So the $500,000 set aside, unless we can stretch this out for 10 years, which I think Jim will agree with me, it's going to be a fight with the DEQ to do that. That we are probably going to have to go out for some bond to make these repairs. Now, our project or our job at this point in time is attempting to stretch this out until the bond load that we're currently under starts to decrease. Now, if that's 7, 8, 9, 10 years, that would be the way to go, and then we'd have to fix this problem. Of course, the cost of the repairs are going to go up over those years also. But I think we need to set, right now there's some contention about one of the repairs processes that we can use is not currently approved by the state of Michigan. And if you can believe this or not, they want us to pay for a study so that they can approve it.
Cool.
Now, it would be my thought that maybe the contractor that's trying to sell the system to us, it's a $6 million, $7 million project, would be responsible for the testing so that he could tell us, hey, I've got your answer. If it's a successful process, the state's going to benefit. So there's going to be some discussion coming back to us whether we are not going to pay for the study to get this past the state of Michigan. That's going to come back. But I think it would behoove us to probably set aside some funds of that $500,000 in case this group or the township board feels it's prudent to spend $60,000 for this test in lieu of tearing up neighborhoods with removing storm drains and stuff. There's so many facets to this. So I guess from a guy that's gone to all the meetings and listened to all the feedback, Jim sat with me, that I don't think it's necessary for us to set aside that kind of funding going forward into the rates.
You're talking about the $500,000.
Right. I think a portion of that, and I'm not even sure a large portion of that is required. 100,000, pick a number. I mean, it's going to be arbitrary anyway, because I don't think anything's going to get done next year, to be quite frank with you. And we're budgeting for next year. So I'm not sure that we're going any place with this in the next 12 months.
And you know what's a little disconcerting, I would think, for everyone here and the citizens is we spent $525,000 to do a study to fix all the problems at the sewer treatment plant.
Correct.
And the state mandated that, and that's a heck of a lot of money.
Correct.
The paperwork was incredible.
Correct.
The 100-year rainfall was just a gentleman's guess. And after they engineered it all, we're stuck with essentially continuing problems. Not our fault. The state already approved that stuff. It's just a little uncomfortable. I'm just a little uncomfortable. It's nobody's fault here in the township. I'm just a little uncomfortable about it.
Well, you should be. And we all should be. Not only should be uncomfortable, we should be damn well upset, which a good percentage of us are. But they keep relying to the fact that we gave them the data. They didn't approve the project. They approved the concept. I mean, I've heard it all from them. And basically, you're responsible for what you've got. I don't buy it, but I just don't know how to get around it unless they change the rules and regulations. John, you know, when you were treasurer, that plant could process 17 million gallons a day. under the new regulations and rules, he can, and they're arguing with us that we can handle 6. So they've cut our plant by 2/3.
But they changed the game because they changed the discharge regulations.
That's it. And how do you fight that? I mean, I just don't know how. So I guess what I'm trying to say, not to drag this thing on any further, I don't believe, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, it's your guys' decision how you want to do this, but in my opinion, I don't think we need to set aside that kind of funds going forward. I'm not sure anything's going to get done in the next 12 months. If you want to set 50 or 60,000 for incidental testing going forward from here for another year, that's fine. And then we can take the burden off the rates. And I think that's important, because at some point in time we're going to be in a situation. Well, right now, I don't know about the rest of you, based on your tax, you can figure it out. It costs me $2,000 a year just to have a toilet if I don't flush it.
Yeah.
If I don't flush it. If I flush it, the rate goes up.
Don't flush it as often.
Well, that's true. But it's not just me. Everybody in this community is suffering the same thing.
It's a topic of discussion all the time. So what you're saying, in effect, is being realistic, we can chop most all of this $500,000 out, which represents a $1.64 increase in the sewer rates, correct?
Right.
So in other words, if we go 10% of that, $50,000, it would, instead of a $1.64 increase, it'd be 16 cents increase.
Correct.
Okay. Which probably is going to be a hell of a lot more palatable, because the $500,000 is not going to solve the problem anyways.
Correct.
And if we end up having to do something, it's probably going to be through a bond issue.
Correct.
You sold me.
I'm not trying to sell you. I'm just trying to see the way I'm looking at it. I just don't think we need to set this aside. I don't think we have the fund balance or the reserve going forward to start setting this money aside. So it's in the next 12 months, I don't think we're going to spend this. We're going to address this again in a year. I mean, it'll be back. I mean, it's not going away.
Right.
But currently, I think it's prudent for the taxpayers and for us to just put this thing aside for a year, give them the minimal rate increase. We've got to cover what we spend. There's no doubt about that. But let's not start building funds that we may not use, because I've had a real issue with fund building all along. It's just my thought.
No, I agree with Ted. A couple of years ago, we thought we should budget the 500, but we haven't gotten anywhere with the ACO discussions. I guess I know that this year, that figure, if I recall, from the draft stuff we had, and we spent about $140,000 so far.
I think we should just say about 160, so if we put like 150.
So what's the figure we should put in this year?
Well,
I don't have
I'm sure we're going to need the assistance.
Some money.
Yeah, $50,000.
Right.
Because the study is over, but we're going to need the expertise to fight. So we're going to be paying these guys to go to court for us, to go to bat with the DEQ. So I think if we set aside $50,000, we're more than in the ballpark, and it'll take a huge cut out of the necessity to raise these rates.
Even with no increase on that, you're still going to get a lot of pushback from the citizens of this township when we have significant increases in the water rate usage. What do we think about that? This 92 cents we've got for, the going from 809 to 915, the water revenue, there's not any way that we could conservatively chop that, I guess. Is there?
Well, the 250,000 in there.
Right.
Big thing in that.
Instead of 280, if we're talking 70,000, but that's enough.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think the committee ought to do the right thing. If the stuff is too old, we need to replace it, we should step up and replace it.
You have to do what's
I mean, we have a problem with a system that is 60, 70 years old.
Right. Bill, I'm not indicating that we should just throw it out the window because I don't like the numbers.
No, I hear you. I know what you're saying.
Maybe get some relief. We talk about fund balance. what is the fund balance in these reserves in the different rates, 100% of where we wish them to be, or raise the rates what you feel is appropriate. If you look at your cash balance at any given day, it fluctuates. You have literally $3 million in the treatment plant at any given day, and then your general fund operations for water and sewer, it only has about between $300,000 to $800,000 on any given day, depending if bond payments are paid or what time of the year you're in. So that's really the cash. When I looked at that other page of fund balance, the reason why the fund balance is about $4 million is because you have unbilled receivables. You have assets that I'd have to shut down the township today, sell my receivables, sell everything out, and at the end of the day you'd have $4 million because it's basically all your current assets less your current liabilities. And that's why cash-wise there's literally about $3.5 million on any given day.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I mean, so if you look over the long haul, obviously we've been charging sewer rates pretty appropriate, because you got to remember over the years sometimes we put huge projects in the water treatment plant, but they weren't done, or they were done, or they're less than what we projected. We used to say, okay, do this wish list, and the water and the sewer rates are so small, but the water rates have been lacking behind. It's always been an issue, so that's why our fund balance remains minimal in the water portion. It's important to raise rates, to continue to raise rates at some level.
You know, I just want to, you made a comment, Bill, about doing the right thing. These valves are not in imminent danger of failure that we're talking about. This 280,000 or whatever number they're factoring in there. They're 60 years old. We're coming on some relief from bond payments at the public safety building that's factored into our rates. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying, is now the time to do it? I'm extremely concerned at the cost of living on Grosse Seal for the average person. And basically the water rates and sewer rates that are here now are extremely high as compared to the rest of the communities around here. Now, do we need to do it now? If you as a commission feel that we need to do it now, then by all means we should do it. But I don't see them, and I didn't hear anybody say it's in imminent need of being done today. There's a risk factor of waiting, obviously, because they're 60 years old.
The delivery is stabilized. That's the one thing. The circular chart, that's a significant factor.
It is. But I'm just wondering if do we wait for another year or two? I mean, they're 60 years old, and we get some relief from the or from the DPS building. Our bond rate goes down. Now we can do it without the major impact of the water rates. But if the commission feels it's necessary, I will support that. I'm just curious as to, I guess, trying to be the devil's advocate here as to what we need to do, what we need to spend, and what we don't need to spend on an urgent basis.
Yeah.
And we do need to spend it at some point. Obviously, we're not going to get away forever.
And I don't disagree with you. And all I'm saying is the committee's appointed. The committee go into this with your eyes wide open. If it's a wise investment, we'll do it. If it isn't needed at this time, we can pull back on it and retrofit what's there.
And the committee, we just look at it three ways. The 241, the 70,000, the postpone.
Right. Well,
so give the complete latitude for all three options.
Well, and I'm not an expert, Ron, and I haven't been in there. I know that this was an important issue to retrofit it when Barry was here, and he brought it up.
Les,
sure.
You've had more experience in this than anybody else. Your comments?
That's you, Les.
Well, I remember when John and I first went down into that pit to see what was down there, because I was never in it in all the years I worked here. they must have needed them at some time because they ended up putting them in. I think they went in the early 60s. Because there was actually 2 water mains feeding Grosse Ile at the north end of the island. McLeod Steel paid for a 12-inch water main coming under the river. But that 12-inch water main was on the incoming side of those PRV valves. And since then, that 12-inch steel water main has been shut down and disconnected. But the pressure chart shows how the pressure is. But don't forget, this main here at Parkway can override that main at the north end with just a slight turn of a little valve on that pressure reducing valve. And that happened before Gary Fisher retired. That Barry wanted to change the pressure on that valve over there, and we blew mains out all over this island until we turned it back down because it overrode the 16 on the north end. So, do they need to be looked at? Sure, they need to be looked at, because all the years I worked there, we never looked at it. I mean, it's a hole in the ground. It was filled to the top with water, and nobody ever went in it. Him and I were the only 2 that ever went in it in 40-some years.
60 years.
So actually, you know, to be able to, the pit needs to be worked on because you can't get in there and work. It's you bent over, hunched over, and it's not very deep in there. Plus, it was full of mud. So when they cleaned it out, it was just like right here at the corner of Meridian and Grove. There's a meter pit down there. It's got a huge fire meter in it. That's what fed this airport. That has since been shut off and not used. But we cleaned that thing out, and it was 3/4 of the way full of mud. And it's a 6-foot deep pit. That's the way that was over there. But it does need to be looked at, and we'll sit and discuss this as a committee and see if we need to, what we need to do with it.
Good. Okay. So, thank you, Les. And what I think then is I'm going to try to summarize where we're at. We've been through all this. As far as the water, we're going to leave it in for now, the PRV valve. Mm-hmm. And what we're asking.
What number? You want to leave it at 241 or whatever it is?
280 is what we have.
For now. Okay. Because the rate's going to.
We're not setting rates today.
We're not setting rates. And the rate's going to come back to us.
Gotcha.
So what we're doing is we're just looking for a vote of support for the budget. So you're going to keep that in. The water budget basically is as it is.
Yeah.
The sewer budget, we're going to cut the $500,000 down to $50,000.
Okay.
The refuse budget is approved as it is. The drain budget's approved as it is. The road budget, we're going to show a split of that truck with the plow out of 4 budgets: drains, water, sewer, and roads. And basically, I think I've got it all. So,
what's this, just so I get an idea, does anyone have an idea what that truck's going to cost? 80, 100, 120?
By brand new, you're looking about 175.
Okay, but that's what
for a 5-yard dump, 175.
I'm going to go
with a plow.
That's
oh
what
my
I'm going to
God.
go with.
It's a lot of money.
Oh my God. You already had 80.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Then I can split, however I'll split it the 5 ways. I just needed a cost.
Wow. I didn't know it cost that much.
So 80,
Stainless steel box.
160.
Why?
You're going to throw salt.
Well, I didn't know we were going to throw salt.
That's just an option. We were doing our township, so if you're going to rebuild the F-350, you wouldn't need it.
What if you didn't have a stainless steel box?
15 lots, probably.
That's all?
For 15.
I wish it cost it out.
Well, we'll cost it out. We need a budget figure. That's a lot of money to budget with.
Yeah.
I mean,
You're actually looking at surplus vehicles at this time.
Good. Makes sense.
And then also sharing the cost with the airport. You get on the airport. The majority of the time, the only time we would use this if there was a
All right, we'll let you figure out what should be budgeted. The point is, we want to get a substantial truck. I suppose you could move snow with a 3-yard dump, couldn't you? Sure. All right, you work it out, but we all support putting the truck in there.
Yep. Right.
I think that covers the issue, so I guess the question is, do we support the budgets based on that?
You looking for a vote?
Sure. Can I have a motion based on that summary? You got it.
So
Right?
moved.
Is that good enough?
Yes.
No?
Who supports?
Move supported that in concept we...
I will. Sorry. I didn't, but...
Move support in concept that we support the budget proposals with the changes that we've suggested tonight. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item, election of chairman. You know, we have a letter from, and this is something that happens every year now, from the, well, let's see, from the township board, that each commission is asked to review its officers, and I guess the chairman, so I'm not opposed to stepping down if you want.
I'd like to make a motion that Bill Costick be the lifetime chairman of the DPS Commission.
For life support.
Why make it just lifetime?
Yeah.
I make a motion that the nominations be closed.
Take a vote. All in favor?
Aye. Well, thank you very much. Do we have other officers, Linda?
We have a vice chairman.
Who's the current vice chair?
Mr. Riley.
John Riley?
John,
I make a
nominate
motion-
John.
I make a motion John stays at the vice chairman.
All in favor? Aye. We also have a secretary.
Secretary.
Which is Phil Kennedy.
Phil.
Okay.
Oh, Phil does a good job.
He
I
does.
make a motion that Phil stays as the secretary.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
People's turn.
You can see a lifetime appointment. So online.
No, I see. Jim, you're raising a question? Why don't you?
Yeah, some of our terms expire, and we got a letter from, what's her name?
Carol?
Yeah, if we wanted to continue on or not, and to respond back, so, I don't know who else is expiring, but mine is. So
Mine is, I responded.
I responded back to that. As long as Jim Budney will let me, I would like to continue.
I'll have to think about it.
Did you do the same thing, Ron?
Yes.
The only people got letters?
Yeah.
Yeah, they would be. Okay, so great.
Yeah.
Okay, we're glad to have that.
That's the $25 a month.
Oh, I know. I knew you were doing it for me.
You might get caught.
Money well spent.
There's a matter here, this letter from Mr. Vincent St. Angelo. Is that something we have to deal with? Or?
No, it's just for your information.
Okay, so that takes us down to public comment. Nobody's left. Chairman's report. I have nothing further to report. I'd just like to acknowledge that our staff, Lorinda and John, have been given promotions, more responsibility. John in the field, Lorinda, interim director. So we'd like to congratulate you and thank you for the job you've been doing with regard to that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Page, that's not a numbered page. Oh, we have a letter from Donna Deepa thanking the staff, DPS staff, for clearing the roads.
No, it's Donna sent it over.
It's an email from
It's an
Donna.
email.
From somebody who called in.
I'd like to comment on that.
Go ahead.
This gentleman got injured in a motorcycle accident, and he's wheelchair bound. He walks his dog every day. He's got a little dog about the size of mine, and he goes with his wheelchair out Wood Drive and down HCL Jackson. And I don't think that he knows everybody that plows that street. The gentleman that just moved in last year across the street from my daughter, he has a plow in his truck, and he plows that road with his truck. And he thinks that we do it, and the county doesn't. So next time I see him, I'm going to talk to him and tell him, I mean, we did plow the road, but It's his neighbor that's plowing the road. He doesn't realize it.
Oh, you got that straightened out. Good, Les. Okay, let's close with any comments. Ted? Les?
I went to a seminar last Tuesday, and I talked to the gentleman a year ago about this fusible PVC water main. Next month, I'm going to bring it up about replacing a piece of water main with this fusible PVC that we have been digging up alongside the canals. 950 feet, right, John? There's no houses connected to it, but we have spent an awful lot of money going down in that swamp and repairing it because we'd have to get that big excavator in there. You can't do it with a backhoe because you never get it out of there. But 950 feet of this, have Sahil look at it, dig 2 holes, and you slide that pipe in, and that worry's over with.
All right, so are you going to supply Lorinda with the information?
Yeah.
And that, and we'll put it in our package?
Yeah.
And when you meet on the PRV as a subcommittee, why don't you bring it up to the committee then?
Okay.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Phil?
No comment.
John?
Nothing further. Nothing further.
Jim?
Nothing.
Ron?
Just
Jim?
like to comment and saying thank you, Lorinda and John, your yeoman's duty, and it really is appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, now, next topic is, our next meeting date is scheduled for March 11th. I will not be able to make the meeting. Ted's going to be out of town.
I probably will be out of town.
So that's 3 of us.
I think we still got a quorum, don't we?
Yes, you do have. So if you need a meeting, Lorinda,
Okay, let's see if we have it.
I'll see what we have coming up.
now, so that would be March 11th. Then the meetings in April, I just wanted to raise an issue. The second Tuesday of April is the 8th. The first Tuesday is the 1st. Knowing that some people, and I can be back for the 8th, but I'm just wondering how you would, how would you feel about moving the meeting to the 15th of April? Will you be here for that?
I might be out of town in March also.
Okay.
That's not firm, but it's a possibility.
Well, that's good. So we'll just have to find out. And if, okay, so Lorinda, I'll check with you on the March meeting.
I'm concerned about missing these meetings when it's cold outside. When you come back in the spring, your handicap should be lower.
Well, I'm gonna actually have some. The idea was just to move the April meeting to the 3rd Tuesday, which is the 15th. If Lorinda can work that out.
I did, I worked it out already with Wally. He said that we'd be able to use this room.
How does everybody feel about that?
Fine. That's April?
Yeah.
That'd be fine with me.
April 15th? Well, let's shoot for that for now.
Okay.
We'll try to make that plan, okay?
April 15th.
All right. With that, I have no further business.
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Let him deliver him, if he delights is heaven.